fall, but I can't lose it.
Let's be innovative. Let's challenge a norm. Let's raise the bar. Let's be the elite.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by ButtKicker, are ready to race.
It's time to ratchet up the stakes. With 3 races complete in the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series, the 2 presumptive title favorites have shined brightest. Adam Blocker's 18th month streak of top 5 finishes has come to an end, but his quest to make it 5 championships in 5 years might just have met an immovable object. Phil Kraus dazzled as a mid-season entry in 2021, but 2 victories to start 2022 have made his title aspirations well known. Today sees double points and the first Triple Crown stop for the year, a 500-mile grind at the Tricky Triangle. This is Pocono, and this is the ButtKicker Pocono 500 presented by Next Level Racing. Hello everyone and welcome back to racespottv for coverage of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. 500 miles, the longest race that we've had since our season finale in 2021, and my name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside today is not Justin Prince, but the very capable Ewan O'Leary gets to see the fun that we've got in store for us. Let's jump in then to our ButtKicker pre-race show, and Ewan, the one and the only time you've commentated on Lionheart action just happened to be a thriller. A Triple Crown race in the Lionheart Retro Series at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that saw one of the longest green flags runs of the season. Today, we're hoping for similar sort of green conditions, but the reality is with 500-mile double points and still only 4 races into the season, there's so much on the line, there's so much tension in the air.
There certainly is, and of course it's the first of the 3 Triple Crown races in this season as well, which just adds an extra layer to things here all at the same time as well. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to being here. It was wonderful to be stepping in for a Retro Series race last season, I'm delighted to be here for the IndyCar Series. It's a great schedule, and we're only just getting things kicked off here, so yeah, looking forward to this one. Should be good.
3 races in March as we look at our Next Level Racing schedule. Just 2 in April, 3 in May. Starts to stretch out a little bit more. The frenetic tempo settles down and you get into the midst of the championship hunt. Here's a look at your driver standings presented by ButtKicker, and 2 wins in 3. Phil Kraus leads the way for the private label Team Hype, with Connor Harrington in 2nd, Adam Blocker in 3rd. After 2 of the races to start the season, he's had to race outside of home with his trackside duties in the NTT IndyCar Series. Private label Team Hype have been rampant in the team standings that we'll talk about in a second, but watch out for Powerslide Adrenaline. Both outfits have all 3 of their drivers inside of the top 8 in the points. Here's a look at your team standings presented by HyperX. It is a 90-point advantage for the private label Team Hype with just 3 races done. Double points today will be vital. And then you look at the gulf back to the rest of the field, Ewan, and you can see why those 2 are the teams that we focus on so much in the Lionheart IndyCar Series.
Yeah, they've been absolutely dominant so far. We've spoken about Phil Kraus before, and you know he's just been fantastic since joining this series last year, partway through last year. He's hit the ground running this season, and it doesn't look like anybody can stop him at this stage, or indeed these 2 teams at the top of these standings, to be quite honest. We'll see if that can indeed happen today, because Kraus was the winner here last year. We've never seen anybody win again at Pocono. Nobody's won more than once here, so can Phil Kraus maybe break that duck today?
Interesting to see that. We'll talk more about the race in a couple of seconds. I don't want to distract myself too much. Really excited for what we've got today. You saw the look at the rookies in the top 10 of the driver standings, but here's a look at the rookie standings presented by ButtKicker, where, of course, Phil Kraus leads the overall championship. He'll lead the rookie championship as well. Alexis Newsom, Alexander Van der Sant 2nd and 3rd. Last time we went racing for 500 miles, it was Van der Sant that came out on the podium spot, so watch out for him. Caleb Bensey's been impressive. Malechka's had a somewhat up and down start to the campaign. Will this be the race where he shines bright to get his 2022 well and truly underway? You look through the rest of these rookies, some names like Adriano Pinheiro, 2 consecutive pole positions to start off the season. Really still waiting though for the Brazilian to dial in that race speed. Here's a look at your series details presented by Gomez Sim Industries in what is the 10th season of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, the 9th year of the Lionheart Racing Series, which has grown from just 1 to now 3 different competitions, all here live on RaceSpot TV. The car, the most recent incarnation of American open wheel racing, the Dallara IR18. With a custom fixed setup, Ewan, but the in-car tools are adjustable. The front, the rear anti-roll bars, the weight jacker as well. At a place like Pocono with 3 very different corners, mastering those tools will be key.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not like what we saw at Kentucky a couple of weeks ago, where it's all the same all around. All 3 corners around Pocono are just that little bit different. And of course, you want to play with those little things in car as well, regarding whether you're out front running in clean air, or whether you're stuck up behind somebody getting all their dirty air, which is going to make your car very understeery indeed. So you do want to just play with those things a little bit, and the guy or girl who does that best will be victorious today. But yeah, it's going to be a great race. 500 miles as well is not something to be to shake a stick at either, is it? It's going to be a long race, a long day. Part of it's going to be about survival. And obviously those things will help you do that. But yeah, it's going to be a long day. As I say, survival, the key.
The first of our Triple Crowns as we pay out more than $10,000 in cash and prizes. Remember as well that our series champion wins a Next Level Racing GT Track cockpit as well as a Gomez Sim Industries FPE rim. They're all chasing Adam Blocker. They're all chasing the private label Team Hype as we get set for our 10th race here at the Tricky Triangle as we look into our event details brought to you by Moser Racing. 9 previous trips, 3 races have ended under caution, and we talked about the fact that no driver has been able to win multiple times. More curiously is the fact that pole position is by no means a guaranteed trip down to victory lane. Only once has the victor started on pole position. Only 4 times have they started inside of the top 10. It's a race where lead changes are sometimes tactical. Season 5, the last year with the DW12, saw 27, the most in series history. You look all the way back to Season 1, where just 100 laps, 250 miles, we had 14 cautions. We double that this year, Ewan, and at a place like this, the caution periods are quite lengthy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we don't double the caution lengths as well as the laps. That would be good. But yeah, you're right. It's going to be a new thing for everybody, isn't it? Because we've never run 500 miles around here in the IndyCar series before, and so that is just going to make things ever more different. And I think it's going to make that third stat on your screen just there even more likely to continue. Pole only emerging victorious once is even more likely to be the same at the end of today, because there's 500 miles for anybody who's out of position to get back into position. And as you say, it's very easy. Well, I don't say easy, but it's possible to come from the back and get to the front at a circuit like this one, in a race like this one, and over 500 miles. It's going to be even more possible than it was before.
Let's talk about this track. On the corner of Long Pond and Andretti Road sits this Tricky Triangle, up high in the Pocono Mountains. Developed in, part to pay tribute to 3 very different speedways, but in the 40-odd years that have passed since, the Pocono Raceway has developed its own legacy, both in the virtual and the real worlds of motorsports. Turn 1, 14 degrees of banking, the most that we've got here, modeled after the Trenton Speedway. Turn 2, 8 degrees, you'll know it as the tunnel turn, modeled after the famed Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And then turn 3, the flattest of them all, the one that's got the most opportunities to run different lines, that's 6 degrees of banking, modeled after the Milwaukee Mile. We're not going to Milwaukee until October 12th in this 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series, but this is the challenge for today. It's also 2.5 miles, Ewan. We talk about the length of the cautions, but it's a long lap as well. It means that you can play some pit strategy and stay on the lead lap here.
Yeah, absolutely. That is one thing we see often when the NASCAR series introduced its stage breaks. What are you going to do then? Because you can actually pit and stay on the lead lap, which is very important. We are going to see a few more people on the lead lap throughout caution periods here today. As opposed to what we saw at Kentucky, where quite a few people ended up on a lap down. It was a relatively short race, but only 12 people ended up on the lead lap by the end of it. We're going to see a lot more, a lot deeper into the race today, and so that does make late race cautions a little bit different as well. If you're towards the front and you want to take some tyres, then you're going to have to come through more cars, likely, if you actually do take tyres and go to the back of the field. So that might play on the minds of a few as we get into some of these caution periods, and these guys are deciding whether to come in or not.
First thing you'll note about the track, it looks cold. It looks overcast. How will that play into the tires? We'll talk about that more later. Currently, though, it's Jason Brophy that's looking on course for a pole position. Brian Beard jumps his way up into second. Malechka Pinheiro sit third and fourth. That's it stands right now. 90 seconds left in qualifying. The way it works, you get the track to yourself. All 2.5 miles, but 5 minutes are on the clock. You get 2 opportunities to go fast, and when it comes to an oval, you always look at the margin. A 1/10 of a second splits the top 30 here.
Yeah, and it's no real surprise. We see this all the time in IndyCar, especially around the ovals. The margins are so fine. One tiny mistake. We're not even talking proper big mistakes like hitting the wall or anything like that. One slight misjudgment. We're talking a few degrees of steering angle, and you can be that can be the difference between pole and second position, as we've seen at the front of the minute. Only 0.005 of a second separating Brophy and Beard right now, and so it's setting the tone certainly for this race. The field is going to stay very close together, as it always does, as it always seems to when IndyCar come to race at Pocono.
Of course, been a couple of years since Pocono has rolled out open wheel machinery. The last couple of years and last couple of races that you remember here in the NTT IndyCar Series, huge accidents, including the one, of course, that saw Robert Wickens take significant injuries, but from there he has bounced his way back into the cockpit of a real car. We'll talk more about that through the 500 miles that lie ahead of us. It's time, though, to go trackside for the 4th time this season. We're ready to go racing for your Buttkikcer Pocono 500. Here in the Pocono Mountains, it's Jason Brophy with his first career Lionheart IndyCar Series pole position. A 41.560 locks the yellow and black to the front of the field. He'll be alongside a fellow yellow and black machine. Brian Beard split by just 0.005 of a second away from pole position. Robert Malechka, Adriano Pinheiro, 2 drivers that have got their fair share of pole positions, 5 amongst the 2 of them in what is a fledgling career for the both of them. They'll share row 2, while title competitors last year share row 3, with Connor Harrington and Adam Blocker rolling from 5th and 6th positions. Your points leader, Phil Kraus, lines up inside of the 00 of Mike Rigney, while AJ Musselman looks for some good luck in 2022, starting from the edge of the top 10 alongside your 2020 Retro Series champion, Ryan Otis. Alexander Van der Sant knows what it takes to go fast in a fuel mileage race, but he'll roll off in 11th alongside Caleb Bensi in the 29. Alexis Newsom, your 2021 Speedway Series champion, inside of the Iowa native Tony Schowen. Chris Fowler and Kite Bommersbach share row 8, while Joe Branch and Matt Taylor complete the top 18. Rounding out the top 20, it's Brian Carey and Ron Hacker. The Candyman and Matt Houston share row 11, while RaceSpot's own Andrew Kinsella's got plenty of work to do, rolling from 23rd alongside Bradley Sexton in 24th. Watch for Kinsella, used fuel mileage last time here at Pocono to emerge in 2nd. Paul Jenkins, Michael O'Brien share row 13, while row 14 sees Tyler Groff and Joshua Chin line up alongside one another. To complete the top 30, to complete the cars within 1/10 of a second, Alex Guyon and Stefan Larkamp bring up the top 30. Big old field here today, where we see Andrew Marquez and Chris Lanini share row 16, Adam Fraser and Matthias Kraus some of the final lap times on the board. Barrett Rolfe has it all to do in qualifying again. Not having the best of speed there. He'll roll from 35th, alongside Mike Rasmus, Lionel Kalisto, and Mitchell Riggs. The other cars not putting in a qualifying lap time. And as always, we've got many cameras positioned around the track to take you through today's action. Let's start with the 4 featured onboards, where Tyler Groff, carries your graphics esports onboard camera. World-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphics.esports.com. Carrying your Buttkikcer onboard is Adriano Pinheiro. Sim racing is better with ButtKicker. Visit thebuttkikcer.com. Alexander Van der Sant carries SimRace 24/7 onboard. Visit simrace247.com, where sim racing is for everyone. And from 35th, Barrett Rolfe has your HyperX onboard camera. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to play. 200 laps on the board. It's a long old race where if we went green, we're looking at as many as 5 pit stops. What are your expectations here quickly, Ewan?
It's going to be very, very exciting indeed. As I said, the field is going to stay very, very close together for a very, very long time, which means that the intensity of the racing here is going to be quite unbelievable. I'm very much looking forward to it. I hope these guys are ready, though.
Well, if the drivers aren't ready, how can we be ready? How can you be ready? Wherever you're watching around the world, delighted to have your company on this special presentation of the Lionheart IndyCar Series on a Saturday. It's time to go racing for the first Triple Crown. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start of the ButtKicker Pocono 500. Nice clean start, a lot better than what we had at Indianapolis last year, where through turn 1, chaos erupted. Leading the way, though, is Connor Harrington. He's gone and past his private label teammate of Jason Brophy. They're all scrambling for some track position. They're all scrambling for some clean air. As we finish lap number 1, it's a private label teammate 1 and 2.
It's hardly surprising to see either, given the start of the season that they've had. It's been absolutely fantastic for them, getting themselves into order. Harrington and Brophy at the moment just exchanging positions as well, by the looks of things. There's a lot of position exchanging going on down the field. But as I said, it's all going to stay very close for a very long time, and it's proving to do so far.
Look at Alexis Newsom around the outside, loses the spot to Alexander Van der Sant, but gains a spot on Pinheiro, who's been absolutely mugged on the start. 8 positions lost for the Brazilian in that 56 car. Remember, 2 pole positions to start off the campaign. Has been struggling in the race, working by himself as an independent driver. Here's a look at Joe Branch in 17th spot, looking down low, rolling through turn 3. You can see this pockets of side-by-side activities further down through the field, but it's clear that at the front they want to stay single file. They want to swap amongst the leaders. Swap drafting, what we see at Indianapolis, it's already paying a bit of dividends. The top 4 running away. Brian Beard now 1.3 seconds behind your leader.
Yeah, almost every straight here, Harrington and Brophy just swapping places into the corners. No contest between them at all. But just believing that is going to be the fastest way for them to get around here at the moment. It seems to be that is the case. A couple of different lines being explored as well through the final couple of corners. But yeah, through into turn 1, they exchange places, and then into turn 2, they just do it all over again. It's going to continue on like that, you'd imagine.
Rinse and repeat. Van der Sant's looking very, very feisty to start this race off. Newsom has gone and passed Rigney. The purple and white continues to try and search for a way around. Remember, the most banking through the 3 corners here at Pocono is through turn 1, so you might see a couple of cars trying to ramp up off of the corner. See how it plays out. Of the 38 cars that started, they're now split by about 8.5 seconds. A pretty big separation, I think, through the entire field here. It does show that clean air is going to be vitally important through the course of the day.
Yeah, it is, but then again, it's just a case of... Oh, we've got trouble out of turn 3, excuse me.
It's Ron Hacker, and the caution flies for the first time today. In our first Triple Crown of the season, turn 3 proving to be a trouble spot. We did hear from some of the drivers pre-race that they were a little concerned about understeer through turns 2 and turns 3, but we'll get another look at what happened here. We've cycled back to the start of this previous lap, so we'll get a good indication of what Ron Hacker was in terms of the fight that he was having to put up with. You've got Tyler Groff behind him, Paul Jenkins in front of him. You can see a car spit itself down low, well and truly in the hornet's nest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was definitely side by side with someone. I just think, is it a case of, was there contact, or was it just the adjustment of the line that set him off course is the question here, really. So we'll wait and find out. It's going to take a sort of middle-ish line through the final couple of corners and maybe get clipped here. Yeah, there it is. A slight clip, and he goes around into... I think he made contact with the wall as well, unfortunately, so a little bit hard to tell. But yes, contact made, definitely.
So here's a look from up above. It's Tyler Groff going around the outside, which really means Hacker's got nowhere to go, and Josh Chin is the one that pinches him, and you're right, loser the front wing, definitely bangs up that suspension as well, and as a result, he has to take the tow back to pit lane now. Do we see any takers for pit road this time around as they catch up to the pace car? Remember, we are looking at maybe a 30 to 35 lap fuel window, somewhat similar to what we have at Indianapolis. I think if you're at the front of the field, there's no way you come down. If you're at the back, maybe you gamble.
Yeah, if you're last, yeah. but like, yeah, if you some of these guys up towards the front, 6 laps in, 5 laps in, or wherever we were, it's way too early for this stage. And as I mentioned earlier on, everybody's on the lead lap at this point. You're going to come out in about 30th place or something. So, you know, it's going to be, it's too far back. You don't want to be running back there when you're in a position like Harrington and Brophy and Maretska have found themselves in, etc. You're right. Those guys down the back of the field, maybe it'd be worth topping off, but it'd be nothing more than that, and wouldn't expect to see any of the top 10 and probably not the top 20 either.
Is Van der Sant peeling his way off? No, I think he is. Now, he's clearly got the pace in his car, feels comfortable trying to get the passes done, and you can see from about 10th on backwards, a bit of indecision. Van der Sant followed in by Schauwen, Kinsella, Carey, so a power slide quartet there. Josh Chin comes in, O'Brien, Sexton, Marquez, Kraus, Frazier, Lanini. Looks like just under half the field has elected to come down and pit. We've got 23 cars that have elected to stay out there.
Yeah, that's more than I was expecting, I have to say. About 15 of them coming in, or 14 if you just count Ron Hackett, who's obviously in. But yeah, that's a little bit surprised to me. Yeah, it's just a top off on fuel, isn't it, really? But we'll see if it really pays dividends later on. If I was some of those running inside the top 10, I would certainly have probably stayed out there. But it just depends how comfortable you are running in traffic, really. Some guys are way more comfortable at running behind others than some other drivers are. So if you're quite happy to be in the pack and in the danger zone, then that's all right. But if you'd rather be out in clean air, then obviously you'd want to stay out.
Some would say that a pit stop here is a highway to the danger zone. Let's talk about the nerves very quickly, though, here, Ewan. I mean, 38 cars at Pocono. It is by far one of the bigger grids that you'll ever see, be it virtual or real, here at Pocono. Usually when the NTT IndyCar series come here, they'd have less than 30 cars out on track. What do you think this early caution and just one car being retired as a result of it will do to the nerves of some of these drivers, especially when it comes to expecting further interruptions by the presence of the safety car?
Well, yeah, it's not exactly going to settle those nerves, is it? Heading on forward in this race, because yeah, you're right. It's very much the danger zone in the middle of this field. We're in the late 30s in terms of how many cars we've actually got out there at the moment. So that is a lot. And it's a lot for everybody to deal with. So it's certainly not going to be settling any nerves, I wouldn't have expected, throughout the opening portion of this race. But it is all about staying calm. I think the fact that it is 500 miles will settle a few, or not allow people to get too worked up about it just yet. Because, you know, if this was a 250-mile race, we were only racing for 100 laps, excuse me, then the situation is a lot different because you've got a lot less time to do everything. But given the distance we have here, I think some people will be quite happy to ride around the back for a little while, and then as soon as we get past the halfway mark, they can start to creep their way forward again and just try and keep themselves as safe as possible until the real crunch point comes later on.
What lap do you think the magic lap is here? If you're going to lay back at the start, take it easy, when do you start to ratchet up that intensity? Well,
I'd always say in a race like this, for me personally, it's always halfway. Especially this more applies to the Daytona 500, really, where you want to stay out of trouble desperately there. But you know, halfway you start to think, okay, I should probably start moving forwards now, because otherwise I'm just going to finish at the back, and nobody wants that. So maybe halfway again, but maybe even later than that, really. It just depends how the cautions fall, and obviously nobody can predict that. If we get some late ones and our last 50 laps are quite interrupted, then you can move forward really quite late. But obviously we don't know when those courses are going to come just yet.
It's very different to a Daytona 500. I'm not just trying to throw you under the bus, but if you're lost at Daytona, you could still win. If you're lost here at Pocono coming to the white flag, kiss your sweet dreams goodbye, baby prince, because you're not winning the race. It's as simple as that. The first interruption has come and gone. A couple of laps under cautions. Have the heart rate settles, have the nerves settled as well. Ron Hacker seems to be our one and only retirement from the first caution of the night. Josh Chin gets involved, but it's his private label Team Hype teammates at the front controlling the field, and Jason Brophy gets us back underway in your ButtKicker Pocono 500. Nice tidy single file restart at the front. The top 5 getting a bit of separation back to Brian Beard, and that's the thing with single file restarts here, Ewan. You've got to be on top of it, because here comes the move down low. The muscle man muscling his way past Brian Beard.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all a very different kettle of fish than the rolling restarts with the double file. The rolling starts, excuse me, with double file. Yeah, it's very different indeed. You do need to be a lot more attentive if you don't want to miss anything. And yeah, we're seeing the winners and losers already. Really, a top 5 kind of breaking themselves away almost. To see a bit of a lead change even into turn 3 on this occasion. But yeah, Alexis Newsom, by the way, been fantastic on this start. 5 positions up already. We're only 9 laps in.
Right, that's what I was just thinking. How is she doing this? As again, swap for the lead. We won't fixate too much on that, because at least in these first 10 laps of a cycle, you do expect the swap draft to be quite prevalent at the front of your field. Here comes Newsom past Otis, and now looking to get past her teammate in the factory-backed motorsports crew. The muscle man, I think, is going to lift off and might actually open the door behind for Ryan Otis to sweep on through as well. He gets through. Here comes Rigney, just checking up on the inside of the tunnel turn. Might cost you 1, might cost you 2, but the muscle man muscles his way to hold on for now.
Yeah, this can happen where you get overtaken by one car and then you just get shuffled on backwards further and further and further. But if you can just get yourself back into the train quite nicely, then you'll be all right, as he's just done there in the 54. Managed to get in there quite nicely. Newsom makes another pass. There we are, down inside it at turn 1. But yeah, it's all very packed up in the midfield. The top 5 getting away, but after that it is a bit of a mess.
Can you tell that Newsom likes ovals? If you couldn't, I'd be shocked. Here's a look on board with Brian Beard. Start on the outside of the front row, but now 2.5 back from your leaders. That top 5 split by just under a second, so every car there is in drafting range. Now Newsom's got some work to do. Maybe already the numbers starting to come into effect here for some of these drivers further back as they think about some of the fuel saving. Again, a swap for the lead. Pinheiro looks down low on Chris Fowler. Behind him, it looks like Joe Brandt just having a peek to the inside on the Candyman Dustin Wardlow. Remember, we're only working lap 12 of 200 here.
Exactly. We've got a long way to go in this race here, and it's just about getting the laps done at this stage, really, more than anything else, more than moving forward. I know we're seeing some fantastic moves down the field from some of these guys trying to get up the order as quickly as possible, but it's not the most important thing in the world at this stage. Arguably saving fuel a little bit, saving your tyres, arguably a little bit more important at this early stage. You might be able to run a little bit further into the race, but let's wait and see how they play it, really. Everybody seems pretty happy to just fight for now.
Yeah, just look at the gap out front. Newsom is shuffled back into line. I think she's realized that there's no way that they're closing that gulf in front of them. Better to ride and do some fuel gains and strategies, at least for the time being. Leaves Ryan Otis, Brian Beard at the front of the peloton to do the swap drafting to try and affect a speed increase that will close the 2.5 second gulf that they have back to Phil Krause. I think it's fair to say, Ewan, not totally familiar with everyone in this field. Again, only your second ever time covering Lionheart, but one person you are intimately familiar with is our defending race winner, Phil Krause.
Well, intimately is a bit of a stretch, but but yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, in 5th place at the minute, Phil Krause doing a very good job. Seeing him win on multiple sims at this point. He's a very good driver, very strong oval driver, but it's also one of those, especially helpful in a series like this, if we're talking about the championship in the context of the whole of it. He's very good at road courses equally, so he will be a force to be reckoned with throughout this season. And yeah, it's great to see him in such an early point in his Lionheart career doing so well. Obviously, already won 2 races this season, and he looks like he can't be stopped at the minute. Just kind of biding his time, it looks like, at the moment in that front group.
Out of turn 3, working lap 15 now. Still a battle between Otis and Beard, who aren't cooperating to the extent that Harrington and Brophy are doing at the front, and that means last time around almost 3/10 lost by these two compared to that leading group. They've set sail. They're waving goodbye already. All just happens on that restart as well, and it's hard to emphasize just how tricky that the checkups can be, and that's why I think a lot of people don't realize this, but you don't want to be lifting off the throttle you want to be getting onto the brakes so that you still have the engine in a good RPM range to power yourself forward. It's one of those tricky things where experience is vital, and the 5 that are running away, they got plenty of experience both in and out of Lionheart.
Exactly, yeah. Those who have experience will come to the fore in these longer races. Generally, you don't get too many surprise winners at a circuit like this, and yeah, it's good to see at the minute. It might not be the most exciting thing to see these guys just swapping positions almost with every corner, and it might be a bit strange why we're not even showing it sometimes. But yeah, it's the fastest way to do it, quite clearly. And that's why they are doing it, and this is why you have to be so attentive on the restarts. Going back to what we talked about earlier on, your single file restarts, you have to be right up behind the guy in front, because you don't want to miss the split that eventually will form at the front. Obviously, all of the top 5 made the split, but the rest of them, they're kind of in one big group, miles behind at this stage, and the gap is still only getting bigger.
Yeah, that's a visual indication at the gap. It might as well be a country mile. Once you're that far behind on an oval, and a high-speed oval like this one, you start to panic. Phil Krause is in that bubble, about a second back from Adam Blocker. He won't be, panic stations, DEFCON 5 just yet, but he will be somewhat stressed about the fact that he might lose the draft of those in front. Mired in the midst of the top 20. Oh, how close was that? Oh, and a car into the wall. Saves it, does a great job to hang on to that one. Now, who was that? That was slip-sliding all the way across the track, and in fact doesn't wrangle it into submission. Yellow flag flies again. That's Tyler Graf in the 98 car. Yeah,
Tyler Graf there has gone off clearly. It was brewing, wasn't it? We saw it was on the entry to turn 3. It was all starting to go wrong. Nearly caught this one, but in the end went into the wall in a very similar way to what we saw to bring out the first caution, actually. But we'll have a look at how it started. It all starts a little bit to the left-hand side of your screen here, and I think he gets caught up with the aftermath, really. So you see understeer City early up the front, and then you've kind of got to, and then the aero wash obviously sends Graf into the wall, and then he's wiggling around everywhere, and unfortunately can't save it, so into the wall, and we have our second caution of the day.
That's right on board from within the aero screen, and get a good look from his perspective. So watch the white cream colored machine that's going to be in the middle of some 3 wide. Slides up the track, then has to back out of the throttle because an Ascari Autosport machine comes up wide. Graf's in that dirty air, tries to keep it pinned to the floor, and, well, that's the end result. Car number 2 taking a tow back to pit lane.
Yeah, should be will probably be the end of the day as well, unfortunately, for Graf there, by the looks of things. And yeah, that's unfortunate to see, but we talked about the aero wash at the start of the day, how it's just going to send you absolutely ploughing, and unfortunately it did there. And yeah, it's already caused a couple of incidents today, and I'm sure they won't be the last. So yeah, pit stops will be coming up, and I'm sure there'll be a few more this time.
Surely. We've also matched, if you're keeping track, which I'm certainly not trying to keep track of when I can relax for the rest of the day, already matched the 2 cautions that we had at the end of last year. It wasn't 12 months ago, because Pocono last year was October 13th, if you want to know the exact day. So what are we, 6 months on, something like that from that race? Now, do the cars that boxed under the first caution come in? I would assume they do, because you surely want to follow the field in and at least be on the same strategy game as them. As well, Malechka. How close do you want to get on pit entry? Very is the answer.
Well, yeah, not that close, because that was a little bit scary. But yeah, I think you're right. There's going to be almost everybody in here. I'm sure there's going to be a few gamblers who stay out to the left-hand side, but almost everybody comes in here, and it's the pressure's going to be on, because you don't want to run through your pit box at a time like this. You're going to go sailing back down the field if you do. And so it does look like everybody's hit their marks nicely and got up onto the jacks without issues. But yeah, very high pressure stops here as they all leave pit lane.
Now, do remember, Ewan's talking about sliding through the box. Let's not de-emphasize just how hard it is to make it in. Let's not trivialize it. It's stripped the downforce off these cars. You lose braking performance as well. So you look back to the 2021 Indianapolis 500. We saw Stefan Wilson, one of 3, I think, cars that had issues braking onto pit lane. So let's not trivialize it by any means Jason Brophy wins the race off a pit road, Blocker in front of his teammate Malechka. We do have 6 cars that have elected to gamble. Paul Jenkins has not boxed at all this race yet, so he's maybe 15 laps away from owing us a pit stop. Andrew Kinsella, Tony Schowen, Alexander Van der Sant, Michael O'Brien, and Brian Carey, the cars that pitted last time around that have stayed out there. With the exception of O'Brien, those are all Powerslide Motorsports cars, so clearly they've got something in mind here.
Yeah, I don't mind this call at all, actually, from that top 6. Maybe you could question Paul Jenkins a little bit since he hasn't pitted at all yet. But certainly those who pitted under the first of the cautions tonight it's certainly an understandable decision to stay out here once more. Because for me, if you're getting off strategy like they did by pitting so early in this race, why not use the opportunity that's just been given to you to get off strategy even more and get some track position out of this now? Because this could change the face of the race from here. We could see a long green flag run with them constantly cycling back to the front of the field with them in the lead. So you never know what's going to happen, do you? So it's worth taking the opportunity that's just been presented to them, in my opinion. So I don't mind this call at all from those top 6.
So I don't blame you. Sorry,
Oh, no.
I'm giggling more just because I'm in a private Discord where Mr. Malechka has elected to jump in and tell me how bored he is, which is why you see him pulling left so he doesn't run into the back of his teammate. And he's right. The other thing is it's become a fuel mileage game from here. You can make it comfortably from this point on. The drivers that are not so comfortable are the guys that haven't come down pit lane. So I'll put to you that the reality is we're getting another caution. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. The timing of that caution will play vital. And if you're Brophy on back, the 5 that started to run away, surely you're hoping to leapfrog your way to the front. It's a good chance for us to figure out how important tires are going to be here. We haven't really talked about the weather. Let's do that right now. It is warm. It is blisteringly warm. 28 in the air, 49 on the track itself. Tires aren't going to be happy here.
No, they're not going to be happy, and we're going to see. We could both see the effects of that coming forward with those who are up front right now. But we mentioned about these fast-running cars so far in this race, like Brophy, Harrington, Blocker, and Malechka, for example. How are they going to run in traffic? They're very quick on their own in clean air, but how quick are they in traffic? That's what we're about to find out as well. So we'll have more clues as to who might win this race in the next 10 laps or so, with regards to how easily some of those make their way through the order, or indeed how difficult they find it.
Watch the concertina here. This is something I think caught out Brian Beard on our previous restart about 15 odd laps ago. Look at the gaps that they're leaving. This is where you make sure you don't get completely jumped. And Blocker has already got to the inside of Connor Harrington. There's the stack up. He's got to slot back into line. If you pass to the inside before you reach the start-finish line, that's an automatic iracing black flag. But look at how racy they're getting back in the pack. 4 wide, Pinheiro in the middle.
Yeah, unfortunately, Lexus Newsom did not get off to a good start, I'm afraid. Now she's getting absolutely swamped by everybody. Look at this. This is an angry pack of wolves almost, isn't it? Because they've all got new tyres. They've all got the ambition to get up places. They've all got a lot of places just up in front of them as well. So everybody is very racy back here now, and it's a very dangerous place to be.
Yeah, I don't want to be here. I do not want to be here at all. Caleb Bensi, I think, gets slightly hung out to dry, but I think that was the muscle man. He gets it back under control. Across the line, look at the snake. Just look at that snake as they work their way towards turn 1. Kinsella has got in front of Paul Jenkins, so it's now a power slide 1-2. Kinsella and Schowen at the front. Blocker is going side by side with Brophy. Malechka has already gotten past Jason Brophy, struggling on the start. The pole man down in net 3rd position.
Yeah, this is exactly what I meant by those who are going to struggle to get through in traffic. It's all well and good being very quick in the clean air, but how well can you get through the traffic? And Malechka looks absolutely unbelievable in the traffic at the moment. He's got past Harrington as well, and now he's got the top 6 who stayed out under that last caution right up in front of him in his sights.
Look at that great shot from up above, the different lines that are being taken, and the action's further back in the pack, don't get me wrong, but up front's where we need to focus right now. Blocker and Brophy, again, side by side into one, where you'd expect the outside to ramp off of the corner just that little bit better, so Blocker slides back into line for now. But here's Malechka. He's got that car fired off the start. He's got the tools into the right window that he wants it to be. It's now a power slide 1, 2, and 3. Could be a 1, 2, 3, 4 if Paul Jenkins gets past here.
Yeah, and this is very telling for Maleczka, really, because it opens up his options for later on in the day. If there's some late cautions and there's the opportunity for him to come in for some new tyres, but he's umming and ahhing about being in traffic, then he'll think, well, I can actually get through this traffic because my car is fantastic in the dirty air, as he's proving to us all right now. He's in third. His nearest rivals for this race, who pitted with him, are 7th, 8th, 9th, it's a long way back. So he's in a great place and he's opened up his options for later on in the day.
Don't even know where to look right now. Blocker and Brophy again side by side. As inside given to Brophy through the tunnel turn might actually benefit Blocker slightly, but carries older tyres, just not gripping up at all. And Blocker now opens the door for Kraus to have a look down low. Your two title favourites side by side through turn 3. Kraus throws a bit of slide job, runs himself up the track, gets in front of Blocker for a moment. Blocker fights back as looks like Maleczka's looking now to get up into second spot. That car is a rocket ship and now leads this race.
Yeah, making it look very, very easy down low as well at turn number 1, which is not easy to do at all. Excuse me. Kinsella's going to try and fall in here with Maleczka and try and get away from the rest. But yeah, these guys back here are fighting very hard indeed, almost needlessly so. But it is very entertaining at the minute to watch.
That was Phil Kraus leaving as little margin as he could, as now they're past the Canadian Brian Carey, who will be the furthest car down in terms of those that have yet to come down and pit. He is being swarmed, the opposite of what Maleczka's going through, as Fowler will duck down to his inside and then have to slot back into line. If this is what we're in for at the end of the race, a 10-lap to go restart with mixed tyre strategies, I think there's lots of valuable data that these drivers will be taking away.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd think tyres, especially in the conditions that we have right now, at nearly 50 degrees on the road, that it would be all let's take tyres. But it's really not at the moment, because some of these guys are really struggling to get through the field. I know they've got through on Kerry, but he's falling through the field quite quickly on everybody at the minute. Maleczka's been the only driver to get through the field at all, despite having new tyres. So this is very telling.
Here comes Taylor with a good run on the Brazilian Adriano Pinheiro. In front of him, the pink and black of Caleb Bensi tries to effect a move on your 2021 Lionheart Speedway Series champion Alexis Newsom, who holds on to that spot for now. Another car that's not enjoyed a great restart. Let's focus up front for a moment. There's Paul Jenkins getting bodied through the tunnel turn by Jason Brophy and then Phil Kraus very shortly. But you see at the front, Kinsella's doing as best as he can to just hold. He's not swapping like we've seen from the other cars. The tyres are too worn to let that happen. But he's keeping Maleczka in the drafting range. He's allowing Tony Schowen, Alexander Van der Sant to follow as well. This is a good team strategy. Power Slide looking somewhat on the back foot to start this off, with private label Team Hype having all 3 of their cars inside of the top 5. Well, they now run 1 through 4.
Yeah, it's looking good again. But yeah, I think you're right. The Kinsella's just trying to hang on at this point rather than actually push on with Maleczka here, and Maleczka's more than happy to tow him along. It looks like there has been a little bit of... I think Blocker might have got into some trouble there. Just saw him dropping down the order a little bit. And he's lost a couple of places, so he's certainly been a bit more separated from Phil Kraus than he was earlier. Those two were going absolutely side by side through all the corners earlier on, but not so much anymore.
All 3. All 3 of them, right?
Exactly, yeah. All 3.
Sorry, I was just trying to figure out what happened. I think maybe it's just Paul Jenkins who's being a bit of a roadblock now, and Blocker slots into line. 2 of the first 3 races we saw Adam Blocker racing away from home. Round 1 saw him racing from league member James Grahula's home. Foreign setup, of course, he made it work. Then round 3 was from a hotel in Indianapolis, where they were meant to be testing after the brand new IndyCar engine test, but because of weather, things got shuffled around. A couple of the teams called it off and elected to go run at Barber instead, as that's a bit of a wobble for Jason Brophy, but no harm, no foul, I guess. So round 3 was about racing from a hotel with a cell service instead of Wi-Fi, with wheels and pedals borrowed from his teammate Robert Maleczka. It was a basic Logitech G29. The tables have turned. This time around, it's Phil Kraus. That's the one on borrowed hardware. He's in the middle of a move, so he's racing from a hotel room. Internet seems to be holding steady, so that's important. And I would somewhat argue, Ewan, that you know, if you're not on your regular hardware, ovals tend to be a little bit easier than road courses to at least not be a complete danger to those around you. Now, being on pace is a different story, don't get me wrong, but I think it maybe helps that it's a fast-flowing oval. Kraus doesn't have too much to worry about. He can run with his teammates as well. That is vital.
Yeah, I think easier is the key word, really, than it otherwise might be. So he's picked a pretty good day for it, by the looks of things. But that means by no means easy, because, as I said earlier, the race is going to get so intense towards late on in this race. If he has to race at 200 miles an hour, absolutely wheel to wheel with everybody back in the pack later on, then that might start to become a bit more strenuous with a foreign setup. It's just all of these things. It just kind of add up throughout the day, really, and the mental fatigue at the end of it, because normally you wouldn't have to think about certain things on a home setup, but you might have to think about a few more things throughout the day, and it is quite a long day today as well. So it might add up later on, but for now he'll be absolutely fine, and he is doing absolutely fine in 7th.
Yeah, which button is my I need to pit button? Which button is the I need to get out of this race button? It would go that way. So top two have broken away. Van der Sant in 3rd is technically within drafting range, but really on that bubble. We've seen Adriano Pinheiro run some edge of your seat kind of lines. Down low, up high, doesn't matter. He's gone even below the yellows. Oh, that's the factory-backed car into the wall. That's Alexis Newsom.
Yeah, just we were sitting there running the high line all day. It was probably the highest of anybody, actually, but that's a little bit too high. Unfortunately, just scraping the wall, gotten away with it. But losing a few places by the looks of things, and continues to run high anyway.
Maybe got away with that one, not too much damage. Let's have a look on board with Alexis Newsom's car on your RaceSpot TV replay. As you can see, that's the dirty air from Brian Beard. She is off the throttle, but there's just no margin of error. She was all the way up the creek without a paddle, and I think, just about gets away with that one.
Well, yeah, I think so. We'll wait and see over the next few laps whether she starts dropping like a stone here, but it looks like that car is up to speed once more, and it looks all right. So got away with one there, but you certainly don't want to be running or rubbing the wall too many more times. And of course, it's one of the dangers of running up high. If the guy in front of you suddenly starts doing it, then you're in big trouble because of the aero wash that we've talked about.
Here's Josh Chin. Mired in the pack, 23rd for him as his teammates squabble amongst 5th, 6th and 7th. So Jason Brophy 1.2 back from Tony Schau and now regains the lead of this peloton. Not the leading car on strategy, that does go the way of Malechka. And I think what we're seeing is, we got that word, right? That 180 laps to go. You're good without having to save from there. So there was no major strategy games that were going on. Malechka clearly realizes that, doesn't want to have to save fuel, wants to try and build a buffer, wants to try and build an advantage. Two different sides of the coins, two different sides of the strategy game. The reality is, we won't know which one is better until we get to the end of the 500 miles here.
Well, that's the beauty of it, isn't it, really? It's all the different strategies and how you get to the end of the race. It's all very different, but it's certainly going to be interesting. We can't actually be that far away from seeing the likes of Kinsella and Van der Sant into the pit lane, because they came in on lap 6 last time, and it's about 37 now, so we can't be too far away from seeing them into the pit lane, and that's when this race really is going to get interesting with the split strategies and so on. They are going to stay on the lead lap at least, which is different to some other ovals or most other ovals, but where are they going to be? Are we going to see a green flag run long enough to see them back up the front, or indeed are they going to cycle back up to the front? All these questions are yet to be answered.
Now Matt Houston from Team Race First has come down to pit lane. I'm not sure what's happened to him, but I have the feeling that he's run into a wall, because it's the only sane explanation as we get this wonderful look from up above. One thing that I didn't really mention earlier is Bensi and Taylor side by side. It's about as close as we want to go through the tunnel turn. Paul Jenkins comes in as expected, but when you look from up above, you see this mess of access roads and various configurations that line the infield here. There are 44 different road configurations at the Pocono Raceway, and there's enough configurations that you could run multiple events at this facility without them running into one another on the many different layouts. I love that flexibility, although let's be real, you're not running multiple races, you're running multiple track day sort of things.
Yes, yeah, but, although it'd be fun to run multiple races, I suppose, wouldn't it? But they're not going to do that. Yeah, it's a slightly strange place in that, but it's people forget how big it is. It's absolutely massive.
Huge.
so when you sort of fully realise how big it is, it's not actually that surprising, somewhat. But that they've got 44 layouts, but it is still impressive. And yeah, it's an impressive place to race. One of the people complain about ovals being unique, but this is being ununique, I should say. But this is the most unique you can get, pretty much, isn't it?
It doesn't get more unique than Pocono. That is for sure. Let's grab a look at what happened to that Team Race First car and Matt Houston. So he's got Joe Branch behind him into turn 3. Now he sends it deep. He sends it deep. It's going into the wall. It's going to the wall. And at least this time he doesn't bounce back. The question really will be, how much understeer did he get? How aggressive was he just trying to clear himself of Joe Branch? Here's a look from the onboard camera. Healthy dose from, I guess that was the muscle man. And yeah, the sigh of, I guess, inevitability was there, Ewan.
Yeah, it's on the throttle far too early, really, for the situation. He was in there and it got straight into the wall. Unfortunately, we talk about obviously slow in, fast out fairly often, and he was very fast in there, I'm afraid. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but these things can happen. And in previous times, you might be able to get away with something like that with less damage. But the damage mold these days means that you will literally lose wheels doing that. So yeah, unfortunate for him, but it shows there's no margin for error around Pocono or anywhere.
Slight mistake, speaking of no margin for error, slight mistake from Caleb Benzi off of turn 3 has allowed Adriano Pinheiro to get on past into turn 2. So nice and easy. There are Brazilians back up into 14th, albeit 10 positions down from where he started this race. I don't think we're too far away from seeing the likes of Kinsella and Van der Sande. I know you were speculating a couple of laps ago. Brian Carey, Michael O'Brien have come down to pit, but I think Kinsella, Van der Sande and Schauen probably 1, maximum 2 laps before we see them dive their way in. 22 laps for the rest of the cars that pitted under that last caution, so maybe about 10 laps away from them boxing as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jenkins came in at lap 37 and he hasn't pitted yet. So these guys came in on lap 6, so you do the maths. We're really getting towards that point now. And this is exactly what I was talking about earlier on, about these guys staying out under that second caution. It could turn out to be a good roll of the dice, and it has been for Kinsella, because he's still in second place as he comes into the pit lane here. He's really been able to hold off these guys on new tyres very, very well, despite the conditions, despite what you'd expect normally. And so this strategy call has really paid off, and he started outside the top 20, wasn't he? He was miles down, but now back right into the fight, right into the fray once more. And yeah, this is the beauty of the using a different strategy in one of these races. Lap traffic is becoming a thing.
Yeah, sorry, those are the cars that have just boxed him. Michael O'Brien, for example, has emerged right in front of your race leader and will go a lap down by virtue, but you'd wonder with the tyres if he's going to be able to blow his way past. Van der Sande comes in this time around, so he's elected, or managed I should say, to go an extra time. As Kinsella's up and away, he's going to emerge right in front of Tony Schauen again, just maybe a couple of seconds in front of your leader. And there's the... We say you're not going to go a lap down, but it's close. Closer than you'd like.
We forget that IndyCar's a lot faster than NASCAR, and yes, it's quite close, and so you do need to be very close to the leader. Kinsella, luckily, was right behind Maleczka, so it's all right. But even so, it's a little bit nervy. And indeed, despite Maleczka being on older tyres at this stage, they really are quite old. These guys have put new ones on. There really isn't that much of a difference. It really is surprising to see. You'd expect the tyre wear to be a big factor. It's nearly 50 degrees down on the road, for goodness sake. And still, these tyres are making absolutely, I don't say no difference, but minimal.
Yes, minimal. I think that's the right way to put it. This is how Maleczka would have wanted it to cycle as well. He's almost 3 seconds clear of Phil Krause, Jason Brophy, and Connor Harrington, the private label triumvirate there, with Blocker, Fowler, Beard, Taylor, Pinheiro, Newsom, the rest of the top 10. So it's worked out nicely for them. You can see Van der Sant emerged just in front of Kinsella and Schowen, so good for them, not so good for O'Brien and for Brian Carey, who is way in the pack. He's behind Adam Blocker, so if a caution dropped now, it would favor, those 4 cars in front of the leader. Doesn't work as nicely for those behind, as it looks like Brian Beard slots behind Matt Taylor in that MadWorks Motorsports car. So coming up to the quarter marker of this race, 2 cautions. It's cleaned itself up since then.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time, cautions breed cautions, and it really is true. Once you get into a rhythm like this, things get a bit easier. Easier being the key thing there. It's not easy, but when things get a little bit more spaced out, you're around less cars, and the cautions become less and less likely to come out. However, as you said earlier, we're not going to have an 180 green flag run until the end of this race. So it's just a case of when that caution comes, being the best place for that you possibly can be, and then taking that on when it indeed comes. But yeah, for now, all you've got to do is it's just about getting the laps over with at this stage, getting minimal overtaking at this stage between everybody. Save a little bit of fuel if you want to, and save your tyres, save everything, and yeah, just get the laps done with. Tick the laps by, because there are a lot of them.
Yeah, build yourself into the rhythm. I think ticking the laps by, that's the phrase that I'd use as well. Just so crucial at this juncture of the race. Left side of the screen, you can see the team logos, you can see the gaps as well. So if you want a handy way to pick up who's working with who, that's a good indication. If you see that Lionheart Racing Series logo, do remember some independents, not necessarily going to be working with one another. Here comes Matthias Kraus to the inside of Stefan Larkamp in the Alkintech NHR Esports machine. Now, Kraus working all by himself for Crescent Motorsports, sees Joe Brancher, series veteran, behind him. Matthias Kraus, of course, now just 4 races into his very young Lionheart IndyCar Series career. Average finish outside of the top 30. His best finish came in 2021. 18th in our season finale, again at a 500-mile race. It's one of those type of races where you survive to get to the end. It's as simple as that. As looks like Adriano Pinheiro, maybe it was Alexis Newsom, excuse me, has maybe just the timing screen playing a couple of lies. Looks like all still in order for the time being. As I've completely lost my train of thought. Ewan, anything interesting from your perspective?
Well, it is that stage of the race where you're likely to do that, and you said train of thought, but there's not many trains out there at the moment at all, are there? It's all single file or 2s or 3s or whatever. It's not like what we saw in the opening part of this race, where it was absolute chaos, and there were battles going on absolutely everywhere. It's really single filed out now, and you'd expect to see that. I was almost surprised at the pace we started this race at, to find ourselves with 2 cautions straight away. Obviously, in retrospect, it maybe wasn't that surprising, but now it is much more like what I'd expect from the first half of this race. People running where they are, people being fairly happy with where they are, because as we've seen, it's very difficult to bridge these gaps on your own when people are working in pairs and whatever, or 3s. When you're working on your own, it's very difficult to get anywhere, really. So why bother? You might as well stay in your little groups.
Officially, of a quarter of the race is in the books, as the private label grouping might just be split up here, as Blocker's going to do the slide job through turn 1. Outside line not getting that opportunity to bank itself off the corner. Now, these cars are about 1.6 away from Jason Brophy, Phil Kraus, who have closed on Malechka. The gap at one point, almost 3 full seconds, has been cut in half, 1.5 last time across the line. Reaching that stage where we're past 30 laps in the run, the balance of the car will have significantly changed, and we've got pit stops underway. Connor Harrington clearly thinking the time is nigh to come down to pit.
Well, yeah, it just shows that when we don't have cautions all the time, these fuel tanks don't actually run that long, because it's only been 31 laps or so since the caution came out, and since most of these guys came down pit lane. Malechka's been out on his own for more than half of this stint, and he could barely make it to 31 laps here, so yeah, that's very telling, I think, as to what we're going to see throughout the rest of this race. Although it does, if indeed by some miracle we do go green the rest of the race, 5 more stints, including the one they're just beginning now, will make it perfectly to the end for everybody.
So now we wait and see as these cars release themselves. Kraus is going to be boxing this time around, so will Blocker, and you'd assume the rest of the company. But going back to your point, clearly what we're seeing is when things get stretched out, going more than 33 costs too much time to be worth it. You want to be doing 30, 31. Remember, we had a couple of laps under pacing as well that would have burnt some fuel. So those are the numbers that we're really looking at.
And look at the two cars that are in front of Maleczka here. Kinsella has managed to get himself in front, and Van der Sant has as well. So these guys are going to become the leaders again. Well, they're going to become 7th in a minute, because still some people haven't pitted yet. But he has been jumped here. The undercut for these guys running on that alternate strategy has worked out. I'm not expecting them to hold on to the lead for that long, but it's still very telling that Maleczka has found himself within these guys once more. Because we talk about the tyres not making that much difference. Well, they're making enough difference when you're out in the clean air and out running around the other side of the circuit.
Well, what's happened to Phil Kraus here, who's just in front of Paul Jenkins, but way, 3 seconds back from Jason Brophy, who are basically interchangeable in that last cycle. Here's a look at the pit stop time. 12.6 is awfully slow. And remember, you can't do wing changes, which sometimes would add, like wing angle changes would add a bit of time. You can't... You're basically just doing full fuel and 4 tires, which is a pretty even number, maximum of 10 seconds. Kraus has gone 2.5 seconds longer than the rest of the field. Yeah,
that is a bit weird. But the only thing I can think of is not responding to the thing being lifted up, whatever it's called. But why would that happen? Why would he not be concentrating in a 10-second pit stop? So I've got no explanation at all for that. But he'll be disappointed that that is the case anyway, whatever it is. And he'll want to rectify it, because he can't afford that kind of stop. If, as I say, if the caution comes out with 25 to go and everybody's in at once, he can't afford to do that again.
So let's look into his box. Oh, there's why. As a reverse very slightly, he slides through, but then the position where he's in is so awkward that iRacing, being such a good, deep dive simulation into what goes on, also brings that out as the caution flies just after the pit stop cycle has come to an end, so it's not going to create too much drama there. Lionel Kalisto and Dustin Wardlow again off of turn 3.
Yeah, turn 3 has proved to be very, very tricky. It's the least banked of all of them, and this looked like it wasn't turn 3 at all, actually. There's a bit of afters anyway, going down towards the straight, and that's what brings the caution out. But these two have clearly come into contact through turn 3. Around the outside line is the move, and then the switchback line.
It is turn 3, technically.
Well, technically, the accident just goes on for a very long time, yeah, and then blown rear left sends that car around. But yeah, just a slight misjudgment, going for the kind of switchback off of turn 3. A very slight misjudgment causes one of the cars to get out of shape, and that could have been a lot worse, that.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, these are reverse.
That's quite bad.
Yeah, these are reverse airplanes. I've seen a lot weirder things when it comes to cars up in the air, especially here at Pocono in the real world. We mentioned Robert Wickens' horrific accident earlier. Similar sort of airtime initially for Lionel Kalisto, but we'll stop gratuitously looking at the incident there. We'll slow it down again. 3rd time today. Caution flies.
And what do you do now? Because those who got themselves off strategy after at a seemingly inopportune moment last time really benefited throughout those last 30 laps or so. So I just wonder if a few of these guys will be thinking, well, these guys who got off strategy last time have been working out pretty well for themselves, so why don't I have a little trip down pit lane here? I know we've only just come in, but it might be worth a go. It is even shorter this time than it was last time, so we might not even see anybody this time, but let's see.
Well, you can see Van der Sant is coming down to pit lane, and I think those who pitted off cycle last time, it would behoove you surely to come in and maybe try and at least get back onto cycle. It doesn't look like anyone at the front is diving in. Blocker is indicating and fakes out. Paul Jenkins, though, decides that he doesn't want to pit. Remember, he was one of those off-cycle cars. I say never trust a commentator's maths. I say never trust a commentator's strategy. If Paul Jenkins has done that, maybe he's not totally out of left field, because there are a couple more cars that are boxing too.
Yeah, he's been out there for nearly 20 laps, let's not forget, so it's not exactly like he pitted 2 minutes ago. He's been nearly 20 laps. If we'd had a 20-lap green flag run, as we did, everybody came in, so I think it's very sensible from him to do that. But yeah, only a few in on this occasion, which is not particularly surprising to see. But then again, we are going to kind of get a reshuffle here, and I don't think Kinsella and Van der Sant will be too disappointed that the field has been closed up again, because everybody's finding it hard to overtake around here. So they'll feel pretty confident that they can hold on to those places further up the order.
Just trying to look through. Again, started with 38. Ron Hacker retired in the first caution where he got tangled up with Joshua Chin. Caution 2 was Tyler Graf by himself, just getting a face full of aero wash and up into the wall. This third caution was between Kalisto and Wardlow, so you'd think 4 cars would be retired, but I think we might have a couple more. Bomber's back in that 37 for Ascaria Autosport is 11 laps down. Not sure if we missed what happened to him. Alexis Newsom, well, apparently that damage from the wall tap seems to have been terminal, because she's been parked now for upwards of 3 minutes after boxing in this cycle, has not emerged back out onto track. So another victim claim there. Brian Beard, Ryan Otis, and Matt Houston all not on the lead lap. Again, you'd have to assume wall taps there. We did see what happened to that 66 machine.
Yes, we did. I was just remembering there was one car that went into the wall and had 3 wheels on without even bringing out a caution. So that'll be the cause of one of those as well. But I can't remember who it was. So yeah, there's been a few at this point. There's been a few retirements. Yeah, we're not going to get to the end of the race with everybody. There's no doubt about that. It's a tricky racetrack, and there's no margin for error, as we've already talked about. So any small mistakes are going to end up in retirements, and we're going to see quite a few of them by the end of today.
It's tricky, but it's not the best track in the world. Ewan, what's that one?
Bathurst.
Come on! Clearly Lewis McLeod is paying you too much.
Well, quite a bit. But
clip it! Somebody clip it. For those out of the loop, Lewis McLeod and myself have. Should we call it a flame war at this point? Because it's just it is an
eternal argument.
Eternal, and I think you can't call it an argument, because an argument usually leads to resolution, whereas neither of us intend to resolve this debate. Yeah, the Nordschleife is clearly the best track in the world. Close second is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Close third is Road Atlanta, and then fourth is Bathurst.
Oh my. That sentence got worse as you went on, actually.
It got better as I went on. more truthful.
Yeah, I know, because you ended with Bathurst at the best, so yeah.
Oh,
I got you there, yeah.
No, you didn't. But I like the games that we're playing right now. Third caution here, though, in your Buttkikcer Pocono 500, presented by Next Level Racing. It started as a 1, 2, 3 at times for the private label Team Hype, but it's a 1, 2, and 3 for Powerslide Motorsports. We've still got split strategies going on right now, but the lights are off on your iRacing pace car. Back to green with 58 laps in the books. Robert Malechka leads the way as he holds the field up, punches the throttle, and we're back underway. Already you can see the effects of the stack-ups cars popping out of line. It's nice and tidy inside the top 20. You've got to dive to the inside by one of the Alcantech NHR esports machines. Here comes Blocker on his teammate Tony Showen.
Oh, and this is the best time to make moves. If you were struggling to do it earlier on, then you might as well do it now, and that's exactly what a lot of people are thinking at this stage. This is where accidents can happen, but everybody keeping it nicely for the moment. And look at that, flying down the inside. Trying to take the lead away at the moment is Brophy, and it looks like he's done it.
Now, I wonder if this is somewhat coordinated by Powerslide. Maybe there's a strategy game going on. Remember, our season opener that went caution-free. No one knew it was going to be a fuel mileage race until about 20 laps in. And from there, the strategy mastermind started working behind the scenes and played itself out as it did. So back to the lead, Malechka. Remember, fresher tires. You'd expect them to swap back and forth. Blockers in front of Kinsella. Watch for Kinsella, Van der Sant, Showen, and Michael O'Brien, as well as Brian Carey. Those are all cars that have been out there on track for about 10 laps plus compared to the rest of the field.
Yeah, there's a lot of differing things going on at the moment, but the top two are certainly getting away. This is exactly why teams work together with their drivers, because you can get away quite easily if you just work together, as Brophy and Maleczka are doing right now. So there is certainly gaps opening up at the front of the field, possibly quicker than even we saw in the past. And further on back, it is pure battling, as we're seeing for fourth, excuse me.
That's Connor Harrington, the New York native, down low on setup builder for Lionheart competition. His fellow teammate and Canadian Brian Carey back in the pack, loses 1, loses 2, as Joe Branch will slide down the inside following Matthias Kraus. Again, Carey, one of those cars to watch for on that slightly different strategy with the tires. He's paying the price right now. Will it pay out in his benefit at the end of this race? Couple of moves back in the pack is Bensi, who's been impressive in 2022. He's battling with, I want to call him the man to watch in 2021, who always seems to struggle with qualifying. Barrett Rolfe finds himself up into 11th, plus 24 on the day so far.
Yeah, doing a very good job to get up the order at the minute. It's actually qualified quite well at Kentucky for considering everything else this season. But yeah, certainly the biggest mover forward at this stage, although Kinsella's not done badly, although that's mainly down to pit strategy. So yeah, fair play to the 33 car at the minute for gaining so many places. Having a fierce battle over the current one though, 11th place.
Barrett Rolfe's average starting position in the 15 races prior to today, 20th. His average finish, 22nd. When you put yourself in a hole, digging yourself out of it is always tougher than if you qualify at the front. Just talk to RaceSpott's own Andrew Kinsella. He'll give you plenty of stories and anecdotes over the years here in Lionheart as to how qualifying badly has always put him on the back foot. Up at the front, the 3-car breakaway this time. Maleczka, Brophy and Blocker. So 2 power slide, just 1 private label Team Hype car. They're 1.5 clear of Connor Harrington and the grouping on back, who find themselves being separated partially because of those cars on older tires. There's Kinsella, Van der Sant's behind him. I think a caution right around now would equalize things on strategy. I don't know if that's actually what they wanted. It looks like Barrett Rolfe saw Pinheiro in his rearview mirror almost up to the wall.
Yeah, we nearly got one there, because Pinheiro was right on the limit, but just about gathered things up. Yeah, as we were saying a little bit earlier, those 3 have now got a bit organised up front. Blocker is sort of ruining that at the minute, because they're all fighting very hard over the lead, and he's gone to the front now, all of a sudden, or briefly. But you saw these guys a little bit further down, how less organised they are than Brophy and Maleczka were. This has all been disrupted now because Blocker wanted a piece of the action and now they're going 3 wide through the final turn.
It's letting Harrington close, who's now under a second from this group, as Brophy gets a bit of a squiggle on. Maleczka's got the power and then has to roll off of it because
stuck,
the momentum that he had. Jason Brophy doing this wise thing, first blocking the momentum and blocking the open door and then tucking back into line. He realizes that at this point the better thing to do would be to try and bring his teammate into the draft, as looks like Dustin Wardlow back down onto pit lane by himself. Not sure if maybe the Candyman has got way more damage than initially thought. He's 8 laps down and still trying to get that car serviced.
Yeah, I'm afraid there's a lot of cars like that at the minute. We've got possibly 6 out of the race right now, unless some of those can get themselves repaired. There are a few people trying to get repairs, but yeah, we've got a few casualties already from this race and a few who are lapped down at this stage, which is unfortunate, but it's the kind of thing that happens around here. As we see a change for the lead, and again, Maleczka down the inside of Blocker, and Brophy backing off almost consciously there by about half a second.
I think trying to just get his teammate into the pack, and there's Harrington. So maybe these two can now work together as Blocker and Maleczka go at it, hammer and tongs, just on swap drafting though. No real fighting at this point in the race. We also watched the battle for 10th, where Adriano Pinheiro rides behind Tony Schau and Caleb Bensi as we work our way towards the halfway marker of this race. Nice battles throughout the field as all. So for a moment there, Matt Taylor getting very, very intimate with the wall. Actually gets such a ramp off the corner that he's past Phil Kraus and trying to pass Van der Sant too in towards turn number 1.
Yeah, this is the kind of fierce battling we've been a little bit further down. That means they're just continually losing time, arguably, on those in front. Phil Kraus almost stuck within this fight at the moment as well with Van der Sant. We're seeing some of these faster running cars really struggle to get through the field in a way that it is almost a little bit surprising, really. We've got at least Blocker and Maletzka and Brophy, Harrington back to the front of the field, I suppose, but guys like Krause are still struggling back in the pack at the moment, and it really is going to be crucial for them. They don't end up like this again if they want to actually win here. Krause is going to have to stay up front all day, really, if he wants to be contending for the win, by the looks of how difficult he's finding getting through traffic.
There's Pinheiro down low on Tony Schowen, dropping Schowen, well and truly out of the top 10. Let's have a quick look at Mike Rigney, the final car on the lead lap, about 1.8 seconds behind the next car in line, that is Bradley Sexton, but he is our Moser Racing driver profile for today. A 69 start, which I've got to, of course, say nice, but 12 top 10s, 3 top 5s, 2 podiums, 1 victory, and 1 pole. The pole and the victory came a year apart, but they came at this place at Pocono. He won here in 2020, if I do the math correctly very quickly. Looking like today's going to be a lot more of a grind to try and recover something. But again, if you're on the leading lap, heading into the final 50 laps of this race, you're always in with a chance.
Yeah, you are in with a chance. We're seeing some recurring names, though, at the front of the field that we're likely to outline as race winners. But you never know. We get surprises. And we could well see him spring up towards the front. If you know, when you're looking at races like this, you're always looking to those with regards to who you trust to actually do the job. And those who have done it before, you'd certainly trust to do a job at Pocono, and he has done. So we'll see if he can maybe become a repeat winner, because we've never seen that at Pocono, which is a somewhat remarkable statistic.
10 years, or 10 races, including today, and like Ewan mentions, no repeat winners. You've got plenty of drivers that have led laps over the 920 previous laps that we've had here at the Pocono Raceway. 39 different drivers have led laps. So unless Phil Krause, Mike Rigney, or Andrew Kinsella emerge on top, we are looking at a 10th different winner in as many years. Top 2 have actually managed to stretch away from Jason Brophy, who we thought maybe was trying to bring into the mix Connor Harrington. Hasn't really worked out the way the 88 was thinking.
Yeah, it's not. It hasn't. I didn't think it would, actually, when he dropped back. I didn't think it was a great idea, because Blocker and Maletzka have immediately fallen into. Well, they both know what the plan is here, certainly, and they're swapping places. They're running quite well as a pairing, and they're getting away from Brophy and Harrington, who are less organised. So I didn't think it was a great idea, but now that Maletzka's touching on a few different lines, not exchanging positions like he was, maybe they'll get back, but. Yeah, it's never a great idea to intentionally lose time, and yeah, we're seeing it, really.
I'm trying to think of a situation where it would be a good idea to lose time, to be completely honest. Not as silly a point as the one that Lewis McLeod made at the end of 2021, which was, well, it's going to go one of 3 ways. The gap will decrease, the gap will stay the same, or the gap will increase.
Yeah, he's not going to hear the end of that, is he?
No, never.
Because that was a little bit weird.
What a dopey thing to say, wouldn't you say? Phil Krause, Van der Sant side-by-side, 7th position behind them. Benzi Pinheiro side-by-side for 10th as into the tunnel turn. Look at the line that the older tyres are running just to roll the momentum through. In fact, that was turn 3, excuse me. Great fighting. It's opened the gap up to Kinsella in front, 1 and a bit seconds there. Between Taylor and Harrington, 4th and 5th, it's up to 2.5 seconds. So it's starting to stretch itself out right now. Remember, 3 cautions so far. The last of them coming about 20-odd laps ago. We're not far away. Oh, who was that?
Pinheiro definitely off the road.
And he's taken with him Joshua Chin. And once again, the caution flies on lap 73. 2 big names taken out through turn number 1. The first time that we've actually seen any sort of drama and chaos through that first corner. Let's have a look at this one. So out of turn 3, they were already fighting hard.
Yeah, they certainly were, and it's this time turn number 1, a rare event for us to see an incident through here, but we are going to. Not sure quite how. I think Pinheiro ends up stuck up on the outside here. Does Chin get a little bit too edgy off of the corner and into him? He does indeed. Yeah, he does get out into the orange car outside of him there, I'm afraid. So yeah, just can't quite turn into the corner enough on the bottom there, and he does continue drifting up and up and up and up and up, and into the side of the car. And in the end gets caught up in the incident as well. There we are.
Could see the desperation for Chin, right? Trying to just lock in a little bit of steering lock into that car, just dial it in. And as he ran up the track, it became inevitable. Here's one more look at the super slow-mo. And we were mentioning earlier that this caution around now would change the strategy mindset for a lot of these drivers. Well, we're about to wait and see, because surely you'd see many of those big players come in this time around.
Yeah, I'd see everybody. I think I would hazard a guess everybody's going to be in here, because even those who are on the alternate strategy, like Kinsella's of this world, I think will be into the pit lane as well, and the Van der Sants, etc. I think they'll be in along with the likes of Blocker and Milecka and Brophy. We'll see if they all do, but I'm expecting a lot to come down here.
Blocker, who has now made 101 career Lionheart starts, 33 victories, and not a bad record. That is for sure. Here we go, entire field on towards pit lane as was suspected. That's not a great look. That's a better look as they stack themselves up onto the pit road entry. Peeling off again. We saw the mistake from Phil Kraus last time. Can't afford to make a mistake. This time around, you'll lose even more positions because of how bunched up the field is.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost everybody on the lead lap is in here at this stage. What is it? The top 27 cars all into the pit lane, apart from Paul Jenkins, who's continuing to do different to everybody else. But out the pit lane they come all at once, and it looks like Blocker has won the race off pit lane there. It will start second.
Brophy loses out, I think, to Connor Harrington, potentially, in the race off of pit road, but it is equalized amongst everyone except Paul Jenkins, the lone standout out on track, although he may just be trying to get the bonus point for leading a lap. So don't factor that one out of your mind as well. And because it's a double points race, that bonus point gets doubled. It might also trap Brian Beard a lap down, so I don't know if Brian Beard will be sending a Christmas present to Paul Jenkins. There you see Ryan Otis as well, but he's 2 laps down, so a couple of cars hoping to try and cycle back to the front. Working lap 75 of the 200 here. 4 cautions so far, but they haven't taken out as many cars as maybe you'd expect as at a place as high speed as this one, Ewan. I think we're in for a couple more of these stop and start periods as we get closer and closer to the checkered flag.
I think so. I mean, there's quite a lot of the incidents so far have been one-car incidents. I mean, I know that wasn't with a couple of cars involved, but we've seen no pile-ups so far. We've seen mainly one and two car incidents at worst, so that is still leaving us with nearly 30 cars out there. We've got 27 on the lead lap still, which is quite a lot still early on in this race, but then again it's quite a big circuit, so it's not too surprising. And indeed we have got just over 30 still out there running, so yeah, I think we are likely to see more of the same throughout the second half of this race. We were never going to break any records for least amount of cautions, I don't think, especially considering we're going double the length today than we normally do.
Getting word from the pit road, Josh Chin complaining that the bottom is non-existent. So if that holds true, you're not going to see many cars willingly diving down low now. They're going to want to be trying to preserve the outside line, preserve track position, and if you go for a move, you might get shuffled back even more than what we've seen so far.
I mean, Chin's already found himself, he's already getting going again here. It clearly wasn't very much damage on that car because he's only a lap down. He's got it repaired, which is somewhat remarkable. So unless he's got more to do and he's just going back around again. But yeah, I mean, we've still got plenty of cars on the lead lap. We've seen O'Brien and Rigney further down topping off as well. So yeah, there's a few different things, strategies going on. But yeah, somehow Chin has managed to repair his car very quickly.
204 seconds of repair. Now I believe there's a drive-through penalty that's coming down as well for Josh Chin for his role in the incident. So car looks okay. I'm just trying to get a good look. Doesn't look terrible.
No, it doesn't look terrible, and he'll be just trying to pick up points, I suppose. At this stage, that's all he can do, and that's pretty much all he will be able to do. From laps down at this point, you are going to struggle, but at least he'll be able to run a few more and get a few points, maybe.
Getting word as well from pit lane that Robert Milecka is so bored that he wants to come and chat with us, so we might get the chance to speak with him during the race at some point. Hopefully not while he's crashing, because that would be bad for our future chances of getting more people to come and talk to us, but might also get us taken off air. So, 4 cautions so far. Not at the halfway marker yet of this first Triple Crown of the season, but it's Paul Jenkins, the odd man in the entire strategy game, that will bring us back to the green. It's a nice, tidy restart. There comes Brophy trying to get himself past Connor Harrington. No further moves until you then find Chris Fowler looking down on AJ Musselman. These restarts getting tidier and tidier as people figure out the right way to get back to the power.
Yeah, so much more single file, especially up front, and I feel like the 3 that we saw going away earlier, we are going to see again, although Brophy is just struggling a little bit on this restart, losing a couple of car lengths here. Really not very much side by side though until you get into the second half of this field. The top guys very much know what they're doing at this stage. I'd much rather keep this as one large group, as we see a little bit further down, people fighting for positions, because they are out of position, they do need them.
There's Chris Fowler, there's Musselman, there's Shawan, all 3 contenders that we saw racing as well at Pocono's Legacy version on iRacing this past Monday in the Graphics Esports 300, the first of the Triple Crowns for the Lionheart Speedway series. Close between them, banking off of turn 2, but again, the low line just not getting the grip, not rolling the momentum the way that it wanted, as confirmed that Josh Chin is rolling down onto pit lane to serve his drive-through penalty. We'll stay on the lead lap because the delta here is about 25 seconds just to roll through the lane. Here's the battle for the lead, where Paul Jenkins, 20 laps into his stint, runs in front of Adam Blocker, Robert Malechka, Jason Brophy, and Connor Harrington, the top 5.
Yeah, once again we're seeing the new tyres not having as much of an effect as you might expect at this stage in the race. Jenkins able to hold on fairly easy. I mean, I was expecting him to have been passed by now, but if we're talking about late race cautions, whether you come in or not, I think this is giving further evidence that you do not come in if you are at the front of the field and you have track position, because it's hard to overtake even with the tyre advantage.
And to that point, I think what we saw from Malechka, right, in the first restart where, or rather the second restart, where the main majority of the pack had come down to pit and we had those stragglers that had stayed out and pitted earlier that elected to stay out. Those cars knew that they had to save fuel if it went green from there. I think that's why we saw Malechka carving his way through with such clinical ease. I agree with you. I think given what we're seeing now, you'll be much more reticent and hesitant to want to come down and pit, as Kraus just trying to find a way through. It's not going to be on the inside at turn 1. I think that is really becoming clear unless that car on the outside gets chalked up on entry.
Yeah, that was looking like it could have been a close moment for a moment, but Van der Sant just about held on to the place, just about kept his car alongside, and Kraus still behind. He is struggling a little bit, Kraus, although, saying that, I barely noticed he was in the Kentucky race until about 20 laps to go, and then all of a sudden he was absolutely unbelievable. So you never know. He's very good at staying quiet and then getting loud late on. I've seen him do it even on other sims as well. I saw him for basically none of the 180 laps, and with about 20 to go he won. So yeah, watch out for him later, but for now he does look a bit average almost.
I'm trying to remember Triple Crown races for Phil Kraus. Now, he took part in 2 in 2021, the first of which was Michigan, where the win was stolen from him at the line. Adam Blocker realizing that you're not allowed to duck below the white line on the start-finish straight on every lap that isn't the final lap. So if you want a snake, you can do it on the final lap. And Phil Kraus found out, to his disappointment, that you could do that. Adam Blocker won by, I think it was 0.03 of a second. And then you go back to the end of 2021, where Phil Kraus again lost out by 1/10.5 this time to Connor Harrington. So 2 Triple Crown races, 2 second-place finishes coming into this one. What did they say? 3rd time's the charm?
Yeah, well, possibly, because he's... Well, I say there, he's not looking great, and he's kind of running in the pack. He's not doing anything particularly wrong either. He's just kind of running there, as we see a bit of close battling for 5th place. The top 4 are sort of getting away, and this is kind of why, because Harrington, Van der Sant and Taylor are all battling very hard, and Taylor with a terrible run off turn 3 because of all of that.
Yep, he almost ran into the side pod of Connor Harrington. Not sure how much closer you want to get in a situation like that, but they all survive, they hold steady. Remember, double points today. It really does make a difference. And when you think about the fact that the final race of the championship is double points as well, Ewan, it becomes so hard to know with any certainty what the championship situation looks like going into that race, because like many other sim racing series, we have drop weeks that get factored into the equation as Phil Kraus gets past Van der Sant. So 22 rounds of the championship, not all 22 will count to the points.
Yeah, exactly. So this series is going to look very different in 6 months' time by the time we get down towards the very end of this, in terms of who's up for it. Yeah, we've said for the last couple of weeks we're starting to outline 2 favourites in Blocker and Kraus, but it could be neither of those two fighting over the title by the end of it. So, a lot is going to change between now and then.
I know what you're saying.
In theory,
yes, I think that's the key part. In theory, it could change. The reality is, Adam Blocker, until March of this year, had a top 5 streak that dated back to September of 2020. More than 20 races he had gone inside of the top 5. It still boggles my mind how you can have enough luck to have that sort of consistency.
Yes, and he's never won here, by the way. He's never won here, but he has won. He's led the most laps of those who haven't. So yeah, bear that in. And he's led quite a few today as well. So he's clearly going for the record. But no, I get what you're saying. I'm talking hypothetically, of course. But no, exactly. It's going to be. We don't know what this. It could be sewn up by the end of the last race. We just do not know.
You're trying to bring up the drama, but so far we've had 4 cautions, plenty of drama in the first Triple Crown outing of your 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. You're watching racespottv and ESTV for coverage of the ButtKicker Pocono 500, presented by Next Level Racing. Almost halfway through, Paul Jenkins leads here at the Tricky Triangle.
With the ButtKicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. ButtKicker, the future is feeling.
Welcome back to the Pocono Mountains for today's Triple Crown adventure in the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. You're watching racespottv and ESTV for coverage of the ButtKicker Pocono 500, presented by Next Level Racing. Delighted to have your company wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Alongside Ewan O'Leary, my name is Arjuna Kankipati, and It's been a stop and start race so far, Ewan. We're not yet at the halfway point, but we've seen 4 cautions so far. 38 has been whittled down. A couple of pit stops have been playing themselves out as Paul Jenkins, who was the only car off strategy, comes down to box. He'll start to feel the pain now.
He certainly will, although I don't think it's as I said before, I don't think it's the worst idea at all for him to be off strategy as we saw earlier on. Who knows where it could get you in this race. But yeah, it's been very interesting so far. 4 cautions, which might sound a bit stop and start, but it hasn't felt too much to me so far, as if it's been completely stop and start. It has had a decent flow to it this race so far, and it is bubbling up nicely before the end. I really believe we're no closer to really knowing who's going to be, the race. I don't think we're any closer than we were at the start of the day. Obviously, we've got our favourites, as in those who are going to be the best, but we're no closer than that really to finding out who's going to win at the end of today.
Time flies when we're having fun. I think it's something like that. A couple of cars did pit and I think retire as well in that final cycle. Or rather, the brief break that we had. Brian Carey and Kite Bombers back. I think both have parked their machines. We're trying to get word from the pit lane what's gone on there. Bombers back's teammate bombs his way past Matt Taylor. Barrett Rolf's now up into 7th, plus 28 from where he started. And I say this all the time when we talk about Barrett Rolf, a former competitor in the GT Academy. For those who are slightly older in sim racing than certainly Ewan O'Leary is. But
thanks for that.
I got to make sure I point it out. But qualifying, the margins are so fine, right? 30 cars split by 1/10 of a second here today.
Yeah,
when you start outside the top 30, you're always just in a terrible spot.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. If you said to someone you were only a 10th off pole position, everyone must have been thinking, oh, you did all right then. But no, unfortunately, you do find yourself a very long way back. Fortunately, as I said earlier on, you've got 500 miles to sort yourself out around here. So whereas we'd only have 7 to go here, and Rolf would probably just be edging into a top 10, and you'd feel pretty happy with that. You've got that time to get into the top 10. And now the second half of the race is almost a new start for him. It's like, right, we've got a 250-mile race coming up. I've qualified inside the top 10, if you like, and I can kind of go from here. So it's almost the start of a new race for him at this stage when you've qualified so low down. But your point earlier is absolutely right. If you qualify badly, your race is not going to end up that great. Even if you do race very well, there's just not enough time. But fortunately for him today, there is.
And maybe it's a little different today as well, because we have seen plenty of passing and cars able to work their way up through the field. But if you get to a short oval or maybe even an intermediate where you're much more affected by the dirty air and you're not able to make passes happen, you can't do much. That's the reality of the situation. You're stuck where you qualify. Pick up the scraps as they come. No scraps for Blocker or Brophy at the front of the field. They're now 1.5 clear of Malechko's, falling into the clutches of Harrington, Kraus, Van der Sant, Rolf, Taylor and company. Again, it's a breakaway, and this time it's just 2.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing this time and time again, that we're seeing little groups pull themselves away from the rest. This time, this is probably the smallest that we've seen it, other than when Moretsko was leading on his own a little bit earlier on. But that was as a result of getting through traffic more than anything else. These two have just kind of worked together and got away from the rest. But this is why you need to be very, very attentive on restarts. If every single person in that train actually was right up the back of the car in front of them, then we would have a very long leading group. But people are not attentive, then you want to race them because you feel like, well, I could get through, and then the gaps start to form and they start to get a bit bigger, and all of a sudden we've got 2 leaders with 2 seconds over the rest of the field who are kind of in one line at the moment. And these guys behind, like Moretsko and Harrington and Kraus, they're a lot less organised than Blocker and Brophy up front.
What's that saying from... I think it's High School Musical. No, never mind. Sorry, it's Rolling Stones. Very, very similar. You can't always get what you want. We're riding on board with Van der Sant in that 96 machine as he tails up to the back of Phil Kraus. He'll go up high. Kraus gives him just that a lane. That's all you need of clean air to be able to work your way through. Not enough for Van der Sant to roll through the corner and try and get the power on early enough to get past, but you can see the different lines. You can see how everyone is migrating off of that very, very bottom. Let's have a look not at pit exit. Let's have a look at your weather conditions. We talked about it earlier. It's just getting warmer. I'm not sure how these tires are going to be feeling, but it's a good thing that the bill for damage is virtual. The bill for tires is virtual too.
Well, yes, but it really isn't making that much difference at this stage. We're seeing the tyres really hold up very, very well compared to the other one. You know, we saw Paul Jenkins out there earlier on. He was on older tyres. Everybody around him had new tyres, and they either didn't want to or couldn't get through. And I feel like, why would there be a reason for them to want to stay behind if he was really that slow? So clearly he was fast enough for them to just stick behind. And yeah, it really is remarkable to see the weather conditions out here so warm, yet the tyres just not falling off in a way that you'd expect, and the new tyres not imposing themselves in the way that you'd expect.
Are you excited, Ewan?
I mean, this should be a good final half of the race.
I know this race is great, but you know what's also great? The month of May.
Well, we've got a couple of weeks yet.
We got a couple of weeks, but in just, 4 days' time, something like that, the open test at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway will be underway. The first running of cars at the Brickyard as we get set for this year's Indianapolis 500. Oh, tension. I love it. The excitement in the air. A new part of history about to be written. But the reason I bring this up isn't the excitement that I have. It's not the excitement that Adam Blocker has. It's the trepidation that Adam Blocker has. He'll be working with Junkos and Callum Ilott for the real world, of course, but there's several weeks that he'll spend in Indianapolis. And we've got a couple of races coming up as well. Silverstone, April 27th, so that will be after the open test, so he should be home for that. But then Nashville at the start of May, Watkins Glen and Phoenix right in the heart of that month of May activities. At least one, if not two, if not three races he'll all be doing again from a very unfamiliar environment to him.
Yeah, that isn't going to be great for him, to be honest. It's not ideal, certainly, but we've seen in the past those people doing all right despite the conditions not being ideal for them in terms of personally. Like Phil Krause at the minute is in 5th place. We saw Blocker only 2 weeks ago was doing very all right at Kentucky without the normal conditions surrounding him, let's say. So it might not make that much of a factor. And I feel like every time he does do it from a place that is not normal, he'll only get better at adapting to the new conditions around. So while we talk about all these different things that you have to think about when you're in a new setup and the mental fatigue that might just kind of accumulate, but I think every time he does it, it'll become a lot more adaptable as he goes.
Last year, of course, very helpful was Carrie Bettenhouse and the I forget what they're called, Indy Sim, Pro Sim, something like that, in Indianapolis. He was able to go race with hardware that was actually quite similar to what he had at home, so that helped, although not virtual reality, which I think is probably the bigger thing for him to deal with, although surely getting familiar. Maybe he'll bring a wheel and pedal set, maybe borrow from Malechka again and set up at his hotel room, although with Watkins Glen, that's probably the one where you're a little bit not looking forward to, because, there's nothing wrong with a basic set of wheel and pedals. It's where most of us, I don't want to say all of us, but most of us started. Going back to that once you've experienced a proper load cell break, though, at a place as fast and frenetic as Watkins Glen, definitely not easy. Yeah,
exactly. I feel like we do sort of overlook the difficulties of getting up to speed with it, with a new setup and whatever, and we're just expecting these guys, because they're kind of professional, to just get on with it and do it straight away. But it does take a lot of getting used to. We always talk about it when you're upgrading your setup. You think, I've got to get, or you're changing it a little bit, like, I've got to get used to this. But you don't think when you suddenly downgrade again that all of a sudden it's going to be a problem as well. But it is equal, if not worse, than it is when you upgrade your setup. So it's sort of an overlooked thing a little bit.
Right.
But then again, not a lot of people have to deal with it very often. So it is a strange one.
Well, fast is fast, no matter what setup, no matter what car. I think that's the reality, and the cream rise to the top in a situation like that. I've heard this story earlier in 2022, and so I always break it out when we're talking about stuff like this, where Rudy Van Buren, who many will know as being part of the world's fastest gamer, part of Team Redline, and one that is blurring the lines between virtual and reality for sure. But competing in this year's virtual Le Mans was doing it from home, and then his rig at home started to have force feedback issues. So the solution was to drive to the fledgling Red Line facility that they're setting up in the Netherlands, which was not a short drive. I mean, it's Europe, so it's not as bad as if you're driving from the coast of Americas, you know. Yeah, but it's still not a short drive. Had to get set up for the rig, had to, you know, adjust the seating, the pedals, the eye line, do a couple of laps and get thrown right back in to finish the minimum drive time. But again, quick is quick. When the pressure is on, you'll figure stuff out. And a nice little segue, as we're now officially past the halfway marker of this race, by the way, and entering in towards the pit stop window. Did you see the news about Team Redline this past week, Ewan?
I haven't seen the news. No,
you haven't.
Inform me.
Wow.
No.
So not only did you miss the 24 hours of the Nürburgring here on RaceSpot, but you also
I've missed a lot.
Wow.
Yes, I realise.
So it's now Team Redline, powered by Verstappen.com and Red Bull drinks.
In this case, I did see this. Yes.
So you're just being dopey.
No, yeah, I did see that, yeah. But I just forgot. No, one thing on that, it does help when you live in the Netherlands where everything is 2 hours away. So that is helpful.
Yeah, 2 hours from me, I can go to Sonoma or I can go to Laguna Seca, but then I'm 4 hours away from the other place.
Exactly, and you are plane rides away from a lot of stuff. So
yes,
yeah, I get the idea. It's something difficult to comprehend, actually, being from Europe.
It is, and that's why I love the drama as well. With now there being 3 scheduled Formula One races in the US. Europeans are just like, why does the US get so many races?
Well, I don't think it needs 3. I've got to be honest. Sorry, Americans.
Well,
but
I'm not going to just argue with you, but I'll say that from Las Vegas to Miami is as far away as probably England is, and I'm guessing here, I'm not looking at a map, but from Azerbaijan and Baku.
I wouldn't go Azerbaijan, but I'd certainly go kind of Poland, maybe a bit further, maybe down towards Turkey or something.
Got some pit stops, by the way. Matt Taylor, Bensi, Fowler, Kraus. So we did say that we were entering into a cycle of pit stops, and green flag pit stops you do need to execute. Brian Beard, not executing perfectly on his entry, but at least tidy enough. Now, which of the front runners will come down earlier? Blocker's got some track position, which is where you want to be. You want to be the car in front coming down to pit road.
Well, yeah, you'd ideally want to be, but I don't think they're going to particularly fight for it, I wouldn't imagine. I think Brophy's actually just backing off. You see him backing off there through turn 3. He was less than a tenth behind heading into the corner, but then really backed off, and he needed to, and he only just did it enough, because he nearly went straight into the back of Blocker there as they come down pit lane all together, top 7, top 8, top 9.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You want to be in front, because if someone locks up behind, you're not getting a penalty for that. It might ruin your race, yes, but you're not going to get a penalty. The tables turn, and it can very much be a different kettle of fish if you are. But the field's in. No one is extending past this marker, so that's a vital data point for us to be looking at. Race off of pit road will be won by Blocker. Then second will be Brophy. Third goes to Malechka. Behind him, Harrington, Kraus, Van de Sant, and then Rolf. So no major changes there. Around the outside, there goes Paul Jenkins back to the lead of the race.
And he's even further in the lead of the race than he was before. He's got a second's lead. That is going to come down, I'm pretty sure. However, this is what we mean about the undercut. It's fairly all right when you're running on your own. But working your way through, these tyres don't give you quite as much advantage to get through as you would think. So running out on your own on an undercut strategy is a lot more viable than it actually is to overtake on the road, quite simply. So that is something interesting to note throughout the remainder of this race. But Jenkins has found himself in a very nice place in this race, I have to say. The off-strategy stuff that he's doing might seem a bit strange at times, but I think he's played it very well so far. And he's got himself in the lead. He's leading laps, and I'm confident in him that he'll manage to get a nice result out of today. I'm not going to say race wins or anything like that, but he'll have a nice result by the end of the day, I'm sure.
To go back to the point, Silverstone is 4,700 kilometers drive away from Baku. Las Vegas and Miami split by just over 4,000 kilometers. So I wasn't totally off. Not totally.
Might be Turkey, something like
Turkey,
that. Might be,
that's a better one.
Poland is even Poland is quite close compared to that.
Right, yeah.
And it is miles away to me.
The thing with Poland is you got to go down and then up if you're driving, right? Whereas if you're flying, you can or take a boat. Very, very different situation. Matt Taylor, Matthias Kraus swap around as the Crescent Motorsports 59 is now up to 11th. By far the best run that the 59 has had since his debut at the end of 2021. So good to see the strides forward from him, consistently working forward, getting better. Should note as well that at the conclusion of that most recent cycle of pit stops, it's now in effect a 6-car train for the lead. Blocker, Malechka, Brophy, Harrington, Kraus, Van der Sande all running up there in those 6 cars. Barrett Rolfe about 1.5 back, and I'm not going to include Paul Jenkins in that just yet, although having said that, he's due in for a pit stop in about 10 laps time, which should mean that, like everyone else, he just needs 2 more pit stops to make it to the checkered. They'll just be longer pit stops than everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. They should be a little bit longer. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, they should be at this stage. Difficult to work out at this stage. I'm still in the frame of mind of thinking there's going to be another caution here, but with every lap that ticks by, I guess it becomes less likely, doesn't it, really? So we'll see. We've still got a long way to go in this race, let's not forget, nearly 90 laps. So it's little point getting too excited over that kind of thing just yet. But yeah, you will start to have the end of race in mind, certainly a lot more than you would in the first half of this race, because obviously we're starting to count down now, really, rather than count up. So yeah, it certainly changes the frame of mind just a little bit. Yeah, Jenkins is going to get steamrolled here by the looks of things. If they want to go through, it doesn't actually look like Blocker wants to now. We've got a very, very exciting top 7, looking very, very close to each other, covered by about 2 seconds right now, 1.5 even.
I'm not sure what the mindset is here for Adam Blocker. I get Jason Brophy's aggression, but Blocker and Malechka are trying to work together to prevent the 88 car from being able to leapfrog the both of them. And to go back to your point about cautions, we've totaled 44 cautions in 9 years heading into the Homestead Miami season opener. That was the first ever that went caution free. So never say never. I think that's what I've learned so far in 2022. Blocker does get to the inside of Jenkins, and Malechka does have a hole to pop out to. That was close, closer than he would have liked. Brophy almost able to stop the momentum of the 91 again.
Yeah, there's a very close battle in the minute, but you see Jenkins here really holding his own despite the tyre difference, and Brophy around the outside, able to get Malechka there. They've got to be careful here as Jenkins pushes up to the outside. Thankfully, Brophy didn't try and go around the outside of the 35 there. There really could have been an accident, but thankfully they're forming an orderly queue, really, to get through on Jenkins, and 2 of them have managed it for now.
Take a ticket, wait your turn. Brophy's opportunity comes through turn 1, where the difference in rubber, 18 laps, and Brophy makes it look nice and easy. Will Connor Harrington in that 44 private label Team Hype blue and black Dallara IRA team be able to follow? Looks like he will. Van der Sande slots into line next, then comes Kraus, then comes Rolfe, and then comes Bensi too. The last 2 really brought back into the mix by virtue of Paul Jenkins, who might have had a bit of contact there way up the track, and he's now down to 7th in a blink of an eye.
Oh yeah, he was going so slowly, I wondered if he was trying to get in the pits there for a moment, but no, he's just really
Full
pushing
wide for the lead.
My goodness.
It's lap 116. Have they decided the time is nigh to go wheel to wheel? Lap traffic played a factor as well. Believe that was Matt Houston, but it's Malechka and Brophy side by side into turn 2.
Yeah, I bet you can tell it's the second half of the race now. The gloves are certainly off, and 4 wide into turn 1 is a good way of demonstrating that, really. Going past one of the lap cars, Brophy has taken the lead. Malechka right behind, and Harrington's got a great view of this. Let's hope that everybody gets through nicely, first of all. But yeah, it's getting very close now, getting a bit more aggressive. The gas is just being turned up ever so slightly on this race now.
Not in maximum attack, maximum afterburners just yet, but yeah, that full wide before in the final 50 laps, definitely more than I think we were bargaining for at this juncture. We'll put it that way. Caleb Bensi has gone and passed Paul Jenkins, so now just Chris Fowler left in line, who is also being brought into the mix by this aggressive group at the front. So what was initially 6 that I was counting through has very quickly become 9 or 10. Matthias Kraus then 3.5 further back in 11th position. Again, working lap 8, so times relatively fresh, but we have seen by the time we get to about lap 8, lap 10, the swap for the lead starts to die off, and from here it's very much more about preserving your position.
Yeah, it is at this stage. After a moment of madness there, everybody seems to have just calmed down a little bit. Maybe looked at the lap count and thought, maybe this is a little bit too early just yet. I know we're only just over 80 laps from the end, but 4 wide is a little bit extreme. And so everybody's just calmed down ever so slightly, and you can see immediately these three starting to go away. We're seeing a pattern, really. Brophy, Malechka and Blocker able to get away each time. Every time those three fall into line and work together, they get away from the rest, and nobody's able to stick with them. So in terms of raw pace, it does look like it's those three who have really got it compared to the rest of this field. But when the battles start, everybody catches up all of a sudden, and the gloves are off. So if this race ends like that, then anybody can win. I think if there's a long green flag run where pace comes into it, then it's going to be one of those three. But in a late battle with everybody everywhere, then who knows who it could be.
In short run pace, I think we've seen Malechka's strength. I'm trying to think who else has stood out like him. I don't think anyone has really shone as bright as him. But we are seeing, you're right, long run, it's those three out front. Harrington seems to be in the mix. Van der Sant, Kraus around there too. Rolf being so far up, I don't think you can count out his short run pace either. So maybe Malechka and Rolf are two that we want to watch for if we get a caution with anywhere less than 25 to go.
And he's not exactly inexperienced at getting past cars. Some of these guys, like Brophy up front, did struggle to get through on cars earlier. Obviously, they look very good now. They're in clean air up front, but getting through on cars back in the pack when track position is not on your side is a whole different thing. Yeah, that's something worth bearing in mind as well. I've been very impressed with Van der Sant here as well, by the way, because all of those who took a gamble under the first couple of cautions have fallen away apart from him. Even Jenkins at this stage has fallen to 10th, Kinsella down to 16th, for example, so Benci 8th. So, Van der Sant has stuck with these leaders as if he belongs there, as if he's been there the entire time. And so, yeah, a very impressive drive from him today.
35, Paul Jenkins onto pit road. So on lap 121, would have to make it 80 laps. In fact, no, he is going to have to stop an additional time. I did say never trust the commentators, Matt, didn't I?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think these guys are going to have to stop twice again.
Well, no.
And he.
So they've got what? Maybe 20 more laps to go. Somewhere in that range, right?
If they can make it to 140, maybe a little bit less, then they'll be fine on making it on 2 more stops. Yeah, these guys up front. But Jenkins will have to make 2 more stops after the one he's just done. Yes. Unless he wants to do 40 lap stints, of course, which is a bit difficult.
Which you could do, hypothetically. You'd just be losing so much time that it really would.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, there he is. In fact, going to merge out right in the midst of that battle. Not ideal for Adam Blocker, who might get caught out here.
Might get blocked, you could say. Sorry.
No, not allowed.
No. Yeah, I see your point. It will be. It's not good for anybody, this actually, because he will want to get through on the new tyres and whatever. He will want to make use of the pace while he's got it, and these guys won't want him trying to get through on him, on them. Excuse me. So it's not good for anybody.
Who was that? Sorry. That was the lap car. Excuse me. That was Matt Houston, I think, who may have run into the wall in turn 3. I almost said turn 4. It always confuses me. Jenkins gets in front of Malechka and allows Blocker to have a look down low. Remember, you're allowed to fight to get back onto the lead lap, so there's nothing wrong with what Jenkins is doing. It's once you've lost a couple of laps that race control requests that you don't interfere with any battles for the lead. Van der Sant almost runs up into Harrington and gets freight trained from there.
Yeah, this is what happens when you lose pace like that. That's an extreme losing of pace, actually, through turn 2 there. So he's lost a couple of positions and down to 7th now. With Benci not too far behind. Fowler, yeah, the top 9 are very close at this stage. This is what happens when the leaders start battling, and this is how it happened. You side by side with Kraus, just drifts up and up and up and up, and there was contact. Yeah, there was, fairly large as well. Something came off somebody's car there. Now,
did the iRacing gods smile back on them? We'll get a good look from Phil Krause's perspective here. So, can see Van der Sant's in front, just sliding and losing the momentum. I think they get away with that one. If there's any damage, it was to Harrington's car, and the right rear suspension seems to have magically fixed itself.
Yeah, that is weird. Something's fallen off there, but apparently not. I don't know. So yeah, it looks like he's gotten away with it, or at least any damage that he has picked up, he's not suffering from at the moment. So yeah, well, that is a remarkable recovery for him. Looks like he pushed up a little bit there through turn 1, but nothing more than normal. And yeah, he's gotten away with a pretty big one there.
Jenkins has cycled out in front of the entirety of your leading group of cars, so not going to play too much of a factor from here forward. The magic number will be lap 140, which I think these cars can make it to. Remember, they've been doing about 30-31 laps full blast. If we do that again, we're right on the money for a lap 140 pit stop again.
Yeah, I don't think it's even that important for them to get to 140 if they can't, because they can easily just do a little bit of saving,
right,
and they'll make it a couple of extra laps. So it's not absolutely imperative that they make it to 140, but it would be helpful. And if they do, of course, we're going to see 60 very fast laps till the end of this race.
Here comes Malechka looking up high through the tunnel turn. Sliding up the track as well. Now, Brophy does have a bit of dirty air. Don't discount that as being part of the reason why it's closed up to Malechka to block her as well. The dirty air from Jenkins being shoveled back into the aero screen of the 88 and up and under. Here comes Malechka, nice and tidy to the race lead. Lap 127, Malechka back in front.
Yeah, just a bit of a swapping of the positions there, and Harrington moves in front of Blocker there. So, yeah, good move from him down into turn number 1. Blocker just seems to be going a little bit slowly at the moment. Not entirely sure whether he's just backing off purposefully or he's losing a bit of pace naturally, or what's quite going on there. But, yeah, he is falling back as Kraus indeed gets through on Rolf as well.
I wonder if maybe Blocker is just trying to save a bit of fuel to minimize the time in pit road this time around to try and cycle out front, because the track position, the clean air might just prove vital from here on forward. So that's something to just be mindful of. He's going to have another look and lob it down the inside and try and repeat what Harrington did to him last time around, but Harrington a bit more committed through the entry of the corner. Will hold on for now, all the while opened the gap up to Brophy in front of them. I can see the fan club of Matthias Kraus pretty happy that he's up there in the top 10 for the first time today. Plenty of drivers have really shuffled their way forward. There you can see Barrett Rolfs plus 29, Kraus is plus 24, Matthias Kraus that is. Michael Rasmas is plus 25, Larkamp 17 gained. Then of course you've got the big losers, the likes of Alexis Newsom, Adriano Pinheiro, even Brian Beard starting on the outside of the front row. And our most recent of the retirees, 38 has become 29, Ewan. A little bit easier, I think, when it comes to any lap traffic that we might have to deal with.
Yeah, lap traffic going to become a little bit less of a problem here. We've still got 26 cars on the lead lap at this stage, which is not bad. But yeah, as you say, only 3 cars not running around, not on the lead lap at this stage, which really is it means it's not a problem. Fortunately for these guys, because I think it would actually be a real sticking point for everybody, given the way we've seen everybody find it quite difficult to get through on one another. But Heinzen's found a bit of pace here recently. Not entirely sure where he's been leaving this all day, but he's all of a sudden going for the lead.
Maybe just manage the tyres a little bit more into the last 10 laps of the stint and should cycle to the race lead for the first time in recent memory. Kraus gets past Blocker as well, so not sure if Blocker is sliding backwards or that consistent fuel saving going on. I see a comment about how we want to see more right turns. If you don't think there's skill involved with doing this, then you're welcome to try it, because as a former road racer converted to an IndyCar diehard, this ain't easy. And there's a reason why an IndyCar driver likely is the most adaptable, at least within one series. You go short track, oval racing where you're on the brakes and momentum's very, very different. You got these sort of super speedways, 2.5 miles, and yes, you're, more flat to the floor than you're on the brakes by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a lot of skill required as to positioning your car in the dirty air, running the right lines, being on top of your in-car tools. And then, of course, when you go road course racing, you've got bumpy streets, the likes of St. Petersburg, Belle Isle, Long Beach, as well as purpose-built facilities, Barber Motorsports Park, Mid-Ohio, or even one of my favorites, Road America.
Yeah, yes, it's hard to argue against that, but people argue about the pros and cons of every racing series.
People try to argue that Mount Panorama is the best track in the world.
Ah, well, yes, they do. But yes. Anyway, but yeah, no, you are right. It is a very. You do have to be very, very adaptable to win one of these championships, and it is something that's different to real life as to what we've got in the Lionheart IndyCar series here. Is that we visit other circuits in the world as well. It's not just America and Canada this time around, like it is in IndyCar in real life. It's almost like a blast from the past, isn't it, really? Having the likes of Silverstone, I think, is next up.
April 27th. Now, I'm a bit concerned about going back there. Those who watched last year's race and the, let's say, firework field finish will know all about that, but we'll gloss over that. We're also going to Suzuka later this year. That's going to be fun, June 15th. Where else?
Phillip Island I saw as well. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, Phillip Island's the penultimate round, November 16th. Then we've got our double header of Motegi. First the Oval, and then the Motegi GP course. Very underrated, if you ask me, is Twin Ring Motegi.
Certainly, I'd love to see it as an oval being used. Yeah, it's not my favourite road course, gotta be honest, but using that as a kind of double header with the oval and the road course is a very nice idea, and yeah, it should be good fun to go there as well.
Of course, the oval damaged in some of the natural disasters around that land. It's more used now as a parking lot for when the road course is racing, or just when Honda needs to store some cars that have yet to be shipped to their customers. The road course gets plenty of use. Of course, regional, series, national series as well. Super Formula, Super GT. Been a while, of course. The last time Motegi hosted IndyCars was on the road course for a one-off race. Motegi's seen Danica Patrick as well take her first career victory, so lots and lots of history associated there. Top two breaking away very slightly. A private label Team Hype starting to come on stronger as Harrington Brophy extend the advantage, and Phil Kraus tries to make it a 1-2-3 as he will look and try and get past the 91. Now again, it's a fixed setup, so there's no setup wizardry or something that they figured out. They might have figured out something with those in-car tools though.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is the key at this in this series. Indeed, with the IndyCar, it's getting those in-car tools on the fly, working all fine, and yeah, you'll be in good stead. This race has changed quite dramatically in the last 5 laps or so, because Harrington all of a sudden looks like he's got an almost unbeatable car up front of the field. He looks very strong, and Blocker also looks very average. He's looked fantastic all day, but now he's looking really not good at all. So this race really has changed in the last 10 laps or so in ways that I was not expecting. Yeah, obviously Phil Kraus, as he always does, is starting to rise to the fore as the chips are down as well. So yeah, we're seeing this race change quite dramatically, really, and it's somewhat surprising to see. We're starting to get 2 leaders running away, and not the 2 people I was expecting. So he wasn't expecting Harrington to be involved with the leading 2.
I just wonder if it's that tyres. The tyres, I think they've preserved them a little bit better. That's why they were not maybe running around as hard through the track. You can see a last pit stop lap for much of this front field is 109, 108 for Barrett Rolfe, just because of where his box is in comparison to the line. But we are starting to see that separation build as Kraus has got past Malechka. Rolfe gets past Blocker. The top 7 at one point split by a hairs, tenths of a second. Now up to 3.5, back to Van der Sant, as we are only a couple of laps away from the fuel window opening for these cars. We see the likes of Michael O'Brien, Matt Houston coming in the last couple of laps. Yeah, we've started to see a few pit stops being made. I think you might be right though with the tyre kind of theory. I think it may well come down to that. Harrington and Kraus clearly have been very good at preserving them, and Blocker and Malechka clearly have not quite been as good by the looks of things, because even Rolfe has got it through on Blocker now. Van der Sant is not too far behind. Brophy has done a very good job though at I think possibly the best of everyone at running up front all day while also saving the tyres at the same time. Everybody else seems to have done one or the other. Matt Taylor's to pit. This time followed in by Matthias Kraus from inside of the top 10, so a couple of cars blinking a bit early. There's your leaders, working lap 138 of 200. We said the magic number was likely lap 140, where you could push hard to the end of this race. These cars still couldn't make it to the end if they box here with just one more stop. would require a little bit more fuel saving than what we've seen, I think, so far in this portion of the race. Of course, 4 cautions, the last of which was on lap 73, so we've gone a long old cycle since then here.
Yeah, it's been a long green flag run now, running for many laps now, but it's good to see. Good to see the race kind of develop on its own, rather than being whittled down by accidents. We haven't seen any of the main contenders really taken out by accidents. Obviously, probably the 2 biggest names, Pinheiro and Joshua Chin, have been taken, although Chin's only 2 laps down. Pinheiro, neither of those were likely to really win the race. It was obviously an outside chance for them. So, we've got all of the main contenders here, and we get down towards the final 60 laps, and all of the main contenders, you'd have to say, are probably within 4 seconds of the leader right now.
Caleb Bensi, Chris Fowler come down to pit. I mean, I'm not going to ask you to pick a winner, because I don't think you can. I think the inevitable caution will change things significantly. I think clearly some cars have figured out short runs, some have figured out the long run. It could all flip on its head. All it takes is one little mistake. But at least for now, with just over 60 to go, 60 this time around, in fact, at the line. It's a private label team hype. 1, 2, 3. Brophy and Harrington come in, and you see Harrington go aggressive. And in fact, might have beaten Brophy into pit lane.
Well, he's definitely got side by side with him at the minute. They're running absolutely neck and neck down the pit lane at the minute. And unsurprising that Harrington had to avoid Brophy there, because they were running so close as they were on the entry to the pit lane. But thankfully, Harrington's boxes before Brophy's, and they didn't have a problem there. As we see, locking up into pit lane, Malecka's going to have a slow stop here. That is not a nice position to be in.
It's not going to hurt him too much, I think, when all things are said and done. Should still be in the draft.
Oh, yeah,
Harrington has got a pit road penalty. I have no doubt about it. The fact that he's still stationary, he's waiting, and I can confirm black flag. It will be for speeding on pit lane entry. So just like that blink of an eye, there goes Connor Harrington, Phil Kraus, Adam Blocker onto pit road this time by.
Yeah, Harrington was very good onto pit road there, but unfortunately it was a little bit too good, and he's paid the price for that one. He's still there. Dear me. It's a very long pit lane penalty, and he's almost going to find himself a lap down at this stage now. A real shame to see. We'll see the replay on board. He's obviously going for a bit of a different line from Brophy. He's trying to avoid the car in front first and foremost, also try and maximise it, but just a few miles an hour too fast. It can't have been much, but it was enough, and it's really set him back in this race, arguably out of contention.
Is he on the lead lap? Just about, because he's emerged in front of Kraus and in front of Brophy, who will now be side by side for the lead. Van der Sant, Malechka, Blocker, that next grouping of cars, but they're 1.5 back. Harrington is not in contention for the victory, that is for sure. But you know what he can do is he can work potentially with his teammate to try and build up that gap. Now, he is about 4 seconds in front, maybe just a bit less than that. Might not be the worst thing in the world to back yourself up into the triumvirate here and try and work together, but we'll wait and see. Paul Jenkins, by the way, is side by side with Chris Fowler. Again, Jenkins is due to pit in about 10 laps time as Malechka pops himself out down low on his teammate Van der Sant. This race has been interesting. It got even more interesting.
Yeah, Malechka's short run pace, by the way, is unmatched. If we get late cautions, then I've got the utmost confidence in him that he's going to at least do a very good final run, because his short run pace is better than anyone's, I would argue. Who knows if we are going to get another one at this stage. Certainly going to be an interesting one to watch. Kraus versus Brophy going to be interesting as well. We haven't seen Kraus in this kind of situation for a little while. He's been doing the classic thing of staying out of trouble, and we barely mentioned him, especially in the first half of this race. We didn't speak of him very much at all, but now he's here. And after looking fairly average all day, he is all of a sudden looking like he's got a fantastic car underneath him, and one that might well be able to take him to a race victory.
Not a bad race so far, and again, just one of 3 full-length 500-mile races in this 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. Indianapolis, the Brickyard. We'll head there on June the 26th. A couple of days before that, we'll have our pole day, our qualifying coverage, just like we did last year as well, to set the grid for the main event. And then it's a long wait till the end of the season where double points will be on the line again for 500 miles. at the Auto Club Speedway in Montana. Van der Sant's up to third. The Power Slide Trio 2.4 back from Phil Kraus. I don't know what they can do to close this gap without a caution coming out.
I don't think they can, if I'm honest. You've got two of the best cars running 1 and 2, working together it seems almost at the moment. Swap exchanging positions, here they are. Brophy and Kraus just exchanging and extending this margin. I know they've got Blocker here, Van der Sant's not been bad, but Maletzka is going to fall off before the end of this stint, I would imagine. Yeah, that's what he did last time. And, you know, they're not exactly... They're reaching a speed where it's impossible to go much faster, really. And so, the pace that Kraus and Brophy are going at, it's almost impossible to catch them because these cars almost physically won't go any faster. So, yeah, it's very tricky. They're a very organised trio at the moment, and they need to be absolutely like a well-oiled machine, to be honest, working as one. If they can do that, then maybe. But even then, it is going to be tricky. It is nearly 3 seconds, let's not forget.
Take a look at the last lap times on the left side of your screen. Kraus and Blocker matching lap times. This time around, 41.438 for Kraus. Going to be 41.9s across the board for the Power Slide Trio. So they're all, last time around at least, losing 5 tenths to Kraus. Although again, it's hard to tell with this swap drafting. You've got to work on this quite effectively amongst the cars that are still out there on the racetrack. Kraus leads for searching for his third win of the year. You can see they've closed up to Connor Harrington. I don't think this is the worst thing in the world. As long as Harrington's lap times are in the mix so he can help affect the swap, maybe Brophy can save some of his tire life here so that if Power Slide comes on strong, you've got at least one car that's got some grip underneath them to work with.
Well, he has all of a sudden lost more than a second here, Brophy. I'm not entirely sure what mistake he's made, but he's dropped back, and Kraus all of a sudden is rocketing away with this race win. It's just got over 50 laps to go. It's going to be a long way to do it on your own, but he's completely left Brophy behind. As you say, might be able to work with Harrington here, Mike Kraus, and we'll see if they do work together. But he has got a margin over Brophy at the moment. It's a long way to go on your own, but he might well just pull it off.
Remember, he's got a teammate to swap around with. It's not maybe as prevalent as it is at Indianapolis, this swap drafting effect, but it is definitely something you don't want to sneeze at. In terms of lap traffic, a couple of seconds down the road is Mike Rigney, and then there's a big gap back to, or up, I should say, to Michael O'Brien, Andrew Kinsella, and Alex Guyon, who might be in danger at the end of the race if we go green, but at least for now, very much, I think, clear of any concern of being a lap down. Here's the trio again, and they just don't look organized right now. They don't look like they know how to try and build up the speed to catch Kraus. Now, maybe you just work at this in stages, right, Ewan? First target is just catch Brophy. Well,
yeah, I mean, they don't look organized. They don't look entirely disorganized either. They're not fighting particularly, but they're just not going quick enough. That's the simple part of it, really. They're just not going quick enough, and it's hard to know what they can really do to go any quicker at this stage, because obviously everybody at the front is so quick at the minute. But yeah, they don't quite look as organised as they need to be. See that in this exchange here, it's a little bit late. You know, it's not quite working out as well as they would hope. But let's get back into the lead of this group. Van der Sant's going to take him probably into turn 1, but yeah, they're all taking different lines. It's not quite as well drilled as they need to be, and it's gone from 2.5 seconds to Kraus to nearly 3.5 now.
Paul Jenkins has pit for the penultimate time today with 50 laps to go here. Again, it's not a racetrack that has seen photo finishes be the norm by any means. We said this at the start. 3 races finishing under the caution. The smallest margin of victory came back in season 1 when it was just under a quarter of a second. We've seen margins of victory up at about 3 seconds, including last year where Phil Kraus won by 2.981 seconds from Andrew Kinsella, with Connor Harrington through the podium positions. Are we in for a similar show today? You'll have to stick around to find out. 49 to go. Phil Kraus leads from Jason Brophy, Robert Malechka, Alexander Van der Sant, and Adam Blocker, the top 5. The next group of cars sees Caleb Bensi, Chris Fowler, Barrett Rolfe all in consideration, while Mike Rasmas rides by himself. Matthias Krause, Stefan Larkamp, Andrew Marquez and Tony Schowen all trying to hunt him down. 49 to go, one final pit stop in about 19 laps time. If there was ever a time to execute on pit lane, we saw Malechka make a slightly wayward entry to the box last time by. We saw Krause's struggles in the first cycle of green flag pit stops. Can't afford those mistakes this time around.
No, you can't. I mean, you do have to execute in pit lane, but I think more importantly, you have to not make mistakes in pit lane this time around. That is far more important than doing anything particularly well. It's just don't do anything badly. That is the thing here, really, more than anything else. So we'll see if anybody can. We've still got a little bit of time to go until we get there. But yeah, make sure you don't make any mistakes throughout the rest of this race. Otherwise, your chances will be over, as we've seen with Harrington already.
It's a breakaway at the front for the private label team hype. Phil Krause leads from Jason Brophy, Robert Malechka and Alexander Van der Sant. You're watching racespottv and ESTV for coverage of the first Triple Crown race in the Lionheart IndyCar Series for 2022. We're live in the Tricky Triangle. The run to the checkered flag coming up next on RaceSpot.tv.
With the ButtKicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. ButtKicker, the future is feeling.
.44 laps to go here in your ButtKicker Pocono 500 presented by Next Level Racing. It's the first Triple Crown double points race of your 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. Hello everyone, welcome back. Delighted to have your company wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The Tricky Triangle has been plenty tricky so far, but its final surprises are yet to come. Alongside Ewan O'Leary, my name is Arjuna Kankipati, and Ewan, one final cycle of pit stops. This is where, if you're paying your pit crew, this is where they earn their money.
Yeah, absolutely. The margins are very fine, and any mistakes here can lose you a race. Any fast pit stops here, of course, can win you the race. The margins are so close. So yeah, it's really going to be down to those final stops in about 13 minutes time with 30 to go or so, and we'll see who's going to win the race. At the moment it seems to be a two-horse race, but let's see if any of those guys behind can get involved maybe and make this more of an open affair into the final moments.
The gap between Phil Krause and Jason Brophy had closed very slightly, but it's opened up again to about 0.8 of a second. with then a further 1.8 back to Adam Blocker, Van der Sant, Malechka, so they're not really making the headway that they need right now. I mean, ultimately, it might come down to maybe trying to gain some time in pit road. You see the blue and black private label Team Hype car, hoping not to repeat what happened with Connor Harrington in the last cycle of pit stops.
Yeah, absolutely. Harrington speeding on pit lane, of course, trying to gain a bit of time when he was behind Jason Brophy, and unfortunately gaining a couple of attempts has cost him almost a lap here at this one. I'm afraid he's just about is on the lead lap. You can see him in some of these camera shots here, just in front of the leader Phil Kraus, but yeah, he's a long way back at this stage, and not even on your left hand side, not even in the top 16. That's how far back he is at this stage. It's a real shame, because he was starting to show some good pace actually, that he had been hiding all day long. So I feel like if he didn't do that, we might have got 3 for the lead at the minute.
Clearly it's your fault. You were starting to talk him up, commentator's curse.
He was starting to talk himself up by getting the lead of the race, to be fair. So yeah, it is a shame to see. It is a shame.
Well, and we saw the replay as well. I'll just say from, I'm not a driver anymore. I'm very much in the retired camp. Those who can't do teach, those who can't teach talk about it apparently. But if he had just followed in his teammate, might he have lost a tenth or two to someone else? Yeah, maybe. Would he have sped? Only if Jason Brophy sped as well. And Jason Brophy is known for making mistakes on pit entry, don't get me wrong. And so I can maybe understand his willingness and desire to get out of harm's way if Jason Brophy was going to have another calamity on pit lane. But pushing that late into the braking zone, at least in my experience, doesn't tend to work out in your benefit.
I think it is easy to say all this in hindsight, because obviously we now know that he speeds on pit lane and loses a load of time. But if not, and he would have, what if he would have been a little bit more cautious and lost the draft maybe because of being a little bit more cautious to some of those around him? We would have been saying, why on earth didn't you go deeper into the braking zone? That was really stupid, not to shave every tenth off your time. So with hindsight we can say this, but it's very hard to know what to do in the moment. The best thing you can do is just push as much as possible, not really worry about or try and preempt anything that's going to happen around you. That's exactly what he did, and unfortunately just pushed that little bit too hard. But there'll be another time when he's in a very similar situation. He'll go deeper in the brakes there and it'll pay off. It's just one of those things.
We say hindsight is 20/20, but and in that particular scenario, I think it holds water. When it comes to strategy games and the what ifs that sometimes happen here in IndyCar open wheel oval racing, I don't think hindsight is 20/20, because there are so many different variables and strategies that have to go a certain way for an outcome to happen. Really, if you find yourself on the wrong end of a strategy call in IndyCar, I think you just say, okay, that strategy didn't work. The one that I wanted to use, the one that everyone else used, might not have worked either if X, Y, Z had gone differently as well. I think that's what makes oval racing so fascinating for me, and it's why I enjoy it, especially compared to, most endurance racing on iRacing, Ewan. I mean, you'll know this. You've done plenty of endurance stuff with RaceSpot. There's never safety cars to make things more interesting, right?
Oh. Yeah, I was about to say that, but I wasn't sure if I was allowed to. so yes. I'm sure. I hope that will be a thing in the future. But yeah, with that lack of variables and the cautions that we have in an oval race, it does make things a little bit stale on occasion. But that is the beauty of oval racing, really, and it happens in real life as well, doesn't it? Where even if you'd have done something different, would you have won anyway? Maybe not. So there's loads of variables that come into it, and I think it's one of those things that's hard to get into. I mean, it took me a while to get into oval racing, but once I did get into it, quite a few years ago now, it's difficult to get out of it, and you don't really stop enjoying it. So it's one of those things that when you get into it, you can't stop, and it's a wonderful thing, really, the amount of variables and different strategies that you can have and still not win.
36 to go, almost in that magic range where pit stops will get you to the end. The gap between Brophy and Blocker is closed to just 7/10 of a second. The power slide charge begins now as they look to power their way up front. Blocker has actually dropped Van der Sant and Malechka. We talked about Blocker struggling at the end of the last cycle. Not struggling midway through this one.
No, really not. He's absolutely flying at the moment, catching Brophy. He'll get some slipstream off him now. I just wonder, he might have just stuck in that group. We saw Malecka is actually completely off of Van der Sant here, but I think Blocker was sticking with Van der Sant for a little bit longer than he otherwise might, because he didn't want to overcook the tyres again. This time he looks like he's done it much better, and so he is now closing in on Brophy. Whether he's going to have the time to get towards Kraus is another issue, because I'd imagine they'll be in about 5 laps time, but he's done a much better job at managing the tyres this stint than he managed this time last stint around.
Now you see there's lots of traffic as looks like Mike Rasmas gets in front of Caleb Bensi on the run down into turn 1. I wonder if the undercut is not the worst idea in the world here. You'll emerge maybe 5-10 seconds further down the road than where you are right now, so extrapolate that. If you're a blocker, you see there's some traffic in front. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I'm just throwing it out there. Pit with 32 to go, we know you can make it from there, albeit with a tiny bit of fuel saving. Maybe the undercut gets you the track position that you need.
Yeah, I think somebody is going to try the undercut here. I think they have to, especially the likes of Brophy or Blocker. That has been by far the most effective way of getting past someone so far in this race. New tyres has even been a less effective way than actually the undercut. So, yeah, I do think we are going to see it from one of them. But are we going to see Phil Kraus actually preempt that and come in himself, because now we've got 3 within a second of each other because of these 2 lap cars, including Harrington, who's just got through, and one more car as well that's really getting in the way and allowing Brophy into the fray.
Here he comes. Here comes the 88 machine. Looking down low on Phil Kraus, and will get the move done nice and easy. I don't think Kraus will fight it too hard, although having said that, they're still side by side off the corner. Brophy slid up the track and just left enough room. Kraus has got the momentum into the tunnel turn, and he's got the preferred outside groove. Kraus holds on, but Blocker closes in further.
Yeah, absolutely. Blocker is very much here now after managing his tyres much better on this most recent stint. Now with 32 to go, who is going to blink first in these guys? It's not going to be Kraus. Kraus is not going to come in first, and these guys are going to stay out a little bit longer. They'll probably want to, so that they can push full out on this final stint of the race. But this has all of a sudden got very, very interesting indeed. It's gone from a Kraus walk-away victory to a Kraus nail-biter at the moment. We'll see if he can hold on.
So pit stop window would open this time by Taylor, Fraser and Kraus, Matthias Kraus that is, have all entered pit lane for the final time today. A little bit more lap traffic through turn 2. Any of the top 3 come down this time. Remember, Kraus was leading but not punching the hole in the air. Got a tow from Connor Harrington, might have been able to dial back his fuel number, save a bit of fuel. None of the top 3 in this time around.
Now, Brophy just had to get through that little bit of lap traffic. Blocker will do as well as Van der Sant comes in. That's the best thing he possibly could have done with 31 to go here, I think. He might well find himself on the back of these guys and make it a 4-car train for the lead by the time he comes out. If his outlap is very, very good indeed, and it needs to be.
So there's Malecka, Van der Sant, Bensi, Rasmas as well. Those other cars that have come down to pit. Will these 3 box this time? Blocker lost a bit of ground by virtue of the lap traffic, but it's not really going to have cost him too much. Might be able to recover some of that in the pit stop cycle. But here they come, nice and aggressive. And Phil Kraus, has he just sped on pit road?
Surely he sped there. That was a massive lockup, and he was looking up a long way after the line. He might well have just thrown this race entirely away and thrown a good result away as well. A very good result. Surely he sped there.
I think he's okay. I think by some miracle, Phil Kraus has not sped on pit lane. Blocker misses his box, which might be crucial as well. Now does Kraus drop and roll? He does. Kraus got away with that one. That is remarkable.
Unbelievable. I've no idea how he got that stopped going down towards the box there. That was unbelievable. And to be honest, it might well have won in the race, because that pit entry was outrageous. He's given him a 1.5 second lead over Brophy. Van der Sant has gained time, but he didn't do the pit entry that Kraus did, and so he's not quite gained as much as he was expecting. Here he comes, second place, but my goodness, that was outrageous.
I heard the inhale from you as you were like, Oh, I don't know how this one's going to go. I thought we were heading somewhere rather familiar. A private label team hype car with a pit road penalty, but some miracle has seen Phil Kraus slow that car in time, and just watch this. Watch the run into the pit lane. Look how late he goes. Look how aggressive he goes. Look how locked up he was. But because it's an average-based system, instead of a maximum speed limit like a lot of European road series would be, this is more the NASCAR-style averaging. Phil Kraus gets away with one, and let's also look at what happened to Adam Blocker sliding through the box. We did pick up on this.
Yeah, he just broke a little bit too late. We talked about the lack of brakes, the lack of downforce heading into these boxes, and that car of Phil Kraus, of course, just being just in front of his box, might have just distorted his view of where he was supposed to be stopping. And although it has been like much of the day, Blocker has often been coming in before Kraus, and so that might have just distorted his view ever so slightly. That might just have costed him a chance at race victory. He's now stuck with Moretska battling over fourth.
Well, and just before the cycle of pit stops, you said it was no longer a walk-off win for Phil Kraus. It's 2.2 seconds the gap back now.
Well, I wasn't expecting him to go absolutely all in on that pit entry as if his life depended on it. It was unbelievable.
That was a bit more than all in, if we're using the analogies.
He had his life and everybody else in his family's life on that.
Yeah.
And he came up with it.
Something like that. The gap's 2.2. Basically gone. You can see Kraus has got some lap traffic, but not the worst thing in the world, I think, for him, as he'll continue just to try and build the advantage. Now up to 2.5 in towards turn 1 with 26 to go. If you're Brophy, you don't try and swap like you were doing with your teammates earlier. You try and hold station now.
Well, you'd think so. They have been doing a little bit of swapping. I do wonder if there's a little bit of motivation here for these two to work together to try and win. But then again, it's not quite the same. And so they are losing time. It was initially 1.5 seconds, then 2, and now 2.5, and we're only 5 laps into this stint or so. So, yeah, it's not looking good for these guys in terms of a race win, but they will fight absolutely hell for leather for that second place. There's no doubt about that. They'll want every point they can get, of course. A second place in a Triple Crown event like this one is very respectable indeed.
So, Phil Kraus, good at Pocono no matter what situation you throw him in. We mentioned this before, but he's racing from a hotel room. If we get the chance to talk to him in HyperX Victory Lane, you and I'm going to be curious what sort of setup he was rocking. Was it triple screens? Was it his regular pedals? Was it cell service or Wi-Fi? Lots of questions have got to be asked.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We do have a lot of questions with regards to that, but what he has done is just adapted to it all very, very well. It's clearly not slowing him down very much, or at all, at the moment, because he's clearly very comfortable with whatever he's got at the moment, and he's looking very good. In terms of the championship as well, Blocker has cost himself not only the chance at a race win with that sliding through the pit box, but also a fair few points. It's double points, let's not forget, so every position lost hurts twice as bad.
Yeah, and again, we're heading into that month of May where you expect Blocker to miss at least, I should say, 1, if not 2 or 3 races, at least not being at home. Now, schedule permitting, what's going on trackside in his role at the NTT IndyCar Series with the NTT IndyCar Series might have something to say about that as well, but not the optimal time in the cycle of the season to be starting to slide backwards. In the team championship as well, Connor Harrington's pit mistake not going to be hurting as bad as it would have done if Andrew Kinsella had been up there in the mix. Now, I'm not sure what's happened to the Canadian. He's all the way down in 24th. We saw him at one point up in the field by virtue of the strategy, but the easy way to figure out which power slide drivers are working together are the ones that have their names start with an A. So Van der Sant, Blocker, and Kinsella are power slide, I believe it's Adrenaline. And then Malechka, Brian Carey, and Tony Schowen are power slide Ignition, because you allocate 3 of your drivers for a team in this HyperX Teams Championship. So private label Team Hype, 1 and 2. Power slide Adrenaline, 3 and 4. It's still advantage going the way of the private label Team Hype machine.
Yeah, it's going to be a great championship fight between those two teams as we go forward. As we saw at the start of the day, we noted how far those two teams were above the rest of them. It's almost like they're driving a different era of IndyCar, to be honest. They're scoring so much more points than everybody else. It's going to stay like that throughout the rest of the season, you would imagine. And yeah, we're going to see a great fight between them. But it just depends who's going to come out on top, really. It doesn't look like Van der Sant has got enough to kind of kick over that 1-2 at the moment, does it, really? He's losing a bit of pace. I know there's a lap car in between involved now. There are a couple of lap cars involved or whatever, but it doesn't look like he's quite got enough. Brophy has looked pretty strong, all in all, just overhauled by a slightly stronger Phil Kraus by the looks of things.
I like that we're talking about the alternative chassis. If you like the DW12, well, Lionheart has a competition for you Monday nights, the Lionheart Speedway Series. Of course, as well, if you like the IR05, well, they got the Classic IndyCar Series, another thing featured here on racespottv. But the Open Wheels 500-mile race allows you to enter any 3 of the Dallara chassis. In the 2 years that the event has been run, no one has ever qualified with a not IR18. If we're going to get new chassis of American open wheel racing, though, Ewan, we got to dive into the history books. We got to get some of the kart machines out here. I know that would make a lot of people in Lionheart delighted.
Yeah, I know a lot of people would be very pleased about that. Unfortunately, iracing wasn't around when that series was in its pomp, so we don't have it, unfortunately. But you never know. We sometimes do get those classic older cars added to iracing on occasion. So you know, I would never say never to a series like that coming out. I'm giving it such a popular era for a lot of people. Yeah, I would never rule it out.
We've got the 87 NASCAR machines. I mean,
exactly.
Let's get some American open wheel cars in. We got the Lotus 79, which of course also plays its part in the Lionheart competitions. The Lionheart Retro Series Thursday evenings in the US takes what was designed to be a Formula One behemoth to ovals, road courses around the world. We always have fun. We always see some exciting racing. Make sure that you join us for that. And if you're not already subscribed to us here on RaceSpot.tv's YouTube, hit that red button, the bell next to it as well. We're about to hit 25,000 subscribers to the RaceSpot.tv YouTube in, well, I don't want to say how many years it's been, because for many of the years we weren't actually broadcasting actively on this particular channel. But it's now our home for all things sim racing, so make sure you stay involved with us. A gap has come down. Jason Brophy now just 1.2 back from Kraus. He's bringing Van der Sant with him.
Yeah, if anybody is going to close this margin, it has to be Brophy. He's run up front all day long. He's been in the top 3 almost as a constant. Obviously, was pole sitter earlier on in this race here as well, which is no mean feat. His first ever pole position. Trying to get this win here. It's going to be difficult for him to get through on all the traffic and whatever, but Kraus has got to deal with the traffic as well. So has Van der Sant. Although, speaking of which, the 96 going down the inside of him at the minute. That is not going to help into turn 1.
Yeah, I get the optimism and the hope from Van der Sant, but I'd almost wager you're better off backing out for now unless you see the pace is dropping off for Jason Brophy, because I don't think you're going to want to swap, and status quo remains. It's back up to 1.8 seconds between first and second. Blockers closing in bit by bit, but Malechka's holding station in 5th. He's not really found too much ground. Again, let's give a full kudos and a shout out to Barrett Rolf's charge. Up 29 positions into 6th spot so far today. But again, qualifying needs that little bit more for him to be able to consistently be at the front. There's a look again as Van der Sant goes up high. He's trying to just find his way past Brophy.
Yeah, he is at the minute. I just wonder if he's settling for second almost here and battling over that. I do think it's worth him holding out a little bit longer. It's not exactly like you need 16 laps to try and work on a pass around here. It is a little bit difficult to make a pass. You might need 5 laps or so, but he doesn't need 16. So if I was him, I would stick behind just for the moment. Let's just see what Brophy can do on his own here. Can he bring me to any closer to a race victory, or will this be a battle for second? If he holds off for a few more laps, then it's very possible that this could become the battle for the lead, and then he'll really be involved with it. So if I was him, I'd just hold off a couple of laps here, wait to see if the gap comes down. If not, then obviously go for second, but this gap could still come down yet.
Thoughts on this aero screen? Just reminded of a conversation I was having a week or two ago with someone in the iracing IndyCar community, and I think, it looks like a jet fighter now. Yes, it added a lot of weight and changed the balance of the car compared to when this IR18 chassis first launched, but regardless of the safety considerations, I think it looks quite cool.
I think it's a better solution than the Halo. I don't love any of the solutions, if I'm totally honest. But I understand why they have to be there. There's very obvious reasons why they have to be there. But none of them are great. I think this is the least bad, if I'm honest. No, I do like this, and especially what they've done with the new IndyCar. Even before they had the aero screen, when they updated this car, what was it, 2018?
Yeah.
Something like that. I really like this new style of car. It races very well. It looks fantastic, I think. And yeah, I do like it. As I say, the aero screen or none of the solutions are great in my opinion. But I don't mind the aero screen too much. It's not soul destroying for me, at least.
You're not one of those people that says that we might as well just go close cockpit. I think that is for sure. As we look on board with Chris Fowler. Had a look on board with Van der Sande as he tried to cut down the gap to Kraus. Between Brophy and Kraus, it is down to the 1.2 bracket, so closer and closer as we get towards 10 to go. Of course, they tried the Halo with this Indy car. They found that it wasn't great when it came to ovals and small debris that would be flung in towards the driver's helmet. Then with the Red Bull Advanced Technologies group, they tried working with PPG and their Opticore material to bring the wraparound closed cockpit nature. Chris Fowler smacks the wall and doesn't bring out the caution. Vital.
Yeah, vitally doesn't bring out the caution. Very close to doing so. But yeah, I mean, that was very close indeed. Here it is. Aero wash, understeer. The very late realisation that he was going to go sailing into that wall, and fortunately he got away with that. That could have very easily resulted in his front right coming off there.
I want to ask, is there something that happens with this hardware? So grab another look at this. The steering wheel.
Well, I've noticed this. When the wheel comes off, the steering wheel goes straight for us, even though it obviously doesn't.
I see what you mean.
So I think it's more of a graphical thing than anything else. As we really are getting down to the final 11 laps because people are not leaving anything anymore.
Yeah, that was Van der Sande leaving at most a piece of paper on the outside of turn 1 this time. I'm getting nervous. I don't know if you can tell, but I am getting properly Christian Horner levels of nervous. Here's a look at the replay and just watch. Washing up the track, so much momentum. He does hit it very briefly.
Very brief, kind of brush on the wall, less than Fowler certainly, but enough to do damage if you hit that in the wrong way. So he just needs to be a little bit careful, because instead of looking forward for second, Brophy has kind of consolidated that. He needs to be looking behind at Blocker and consolidating third. We know that Blocker, despite running through his pit box there in the final stops, he has mastered the kind of saving tyres throughout a stint here. He did it very, very well on the penultimate stint of this race. If he does that again, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in these final 10 laps.
Taylor and Shawan battling for 12th as the 8 machine works his way forward. 10 to go, 9 this time by at the line. It's a 1.5 second advantage for Phil Kraus. Jason Brophy in second. Van der Sande's going to get passed by his teammate, who knows the hurry up comes now. Van der Sande will miss out on the podium, but again, a sterling drive for him. Someone that we definitely will be keeping our eyes on through the course of 2022. There's the man in control of his destiny here. 9 laps to go. If we go caution free, all he's got to do is keep it out of the walls. A caution with 4 to go would end the race. Now that's the magic number we've got to look towards.
Yeah, he's getting closer and closer towards that magic number as well. And with every lap that ticks by, that 1.6 second margin seems bigger with every lap that goes past. Now he needs 2 tenths a lap at the very least, as Brophy, to get anywhere near Phil Kraus. And that is looking less and less likely, because if you look at the way Phil Kraus has been towards the end of his stints in the second half of this race, he has been formidable. And so he's going to be very, very difficult to catch, even in relation to Brophy, who has not been bad at all himself. it's just one of those frustrating days where you're just beaten by somebody who is absolutely out of this world. Brophy really has driven a good race, but Kraus has been next level once again.
Again, Blocker, Van der Sant behind, getting close to the wall. Harrington splits the private label Team Hype 1-2 from the Power Slide 3-4. That's the state of the board with 7 laps to go here at Pocono. The first time we've gone racing for 500 miles, and it's been one of the cleanest races in series history. Coming into this one, we thought it might have been a bit of a caution fest. 68 cautions in 9 years, an average of 8 per race. But 500 miles, we've seen 4 cautions so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got more than 250 miles here without a caution at all, which is remarkable, really is. So yeah, it's a surprise to see, but a nice surprise, really. I think this race would have been better for a real developing story rather than what we see sometimes in these races, which is just bashes and crashes and cautions and then a real dash to the end where it's all a bit messy. We've seen a proper nice race develop here with proper strategy and a real daring move to on pit lane to actually win this one. When you think back to it, that pit road kind of entry from Phil Kraus could arguably have won him this race.
Yeah, oh no, you're right. I think that's a moment that we're definitely going to be asking him about as Chris Fowler loses out to Mitchell Riggs. I'm going to use an analogy from England, and I know you're from the UK, Ewan, but you're so young and you don't appreciate the finer things about sports that you're not going to get this. But endurance racing, 24-hour races, those are like test matches. 5 days or 24 hours, whatever it is, you sit around patiently and you wait for the result to present itself. I know this is just 500 miles. I know this is only about a 2-hour race, but in so many ways, these longer races feel like test matches where you got to be patient, you got to wait to see how things are going to play out, and especially when you've got a 250-mile run to the checkered flag after the final caution. You just wait and see where things are going to land. It's as simple as that. You can never be guaranteed anything in a race that's gone like this.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I don't actually like test cricket. It's not bad, but I agree. I totally agree. It is more of a slow developing story, this one, and it has been. So yeah, the analogy is certainly right, correct. And yeah, it's been one of those. There's certainly a place for those races where there's a lot of incidents, there's a lot of drama, and there's wheel to wheel racing right from the first green flag till the checkered flag. But there's also a place for these strategic races that are more drawn out and more test match like, if you like, and yeah, there's a place for both, and this has certainly been one of the latter here at Pocono, one of those Triple Crown races that really intrigued us rather than exciting us. There's certainly a difference.
So you're one of the smart people that likes Test cricket. It's Zach Sweeney and Cam Roger. Okay, yes, just want to make sure I've got it correct, so I can, next time I'm on broadcast with them, I'll make sure I dig into them. Again, left side of the screen, you'll see the team logos. Easy way to identify who is with who. Private label Team Hype 1 and 2, Power Slide 3, 4, and 5. Ascari Autosport have 2 of their cars inside the top 10. Finally, some results going their direction. Bensi is the only team race first car inside of the top 20. Houston runs 29th. Razmas in that 68 machine for the thumbs up, cancer down, sits in 8th position. Alcantech have had some good runs, but not consistently today so far. And then Madworks Motorsports sit outside the top 10, 11th and 12th. 2 drivers that compete across the gamut of Lionheart competition. This time across the line will be 1 lap to go. Phil Kraus looks to make it 2 in a row here at the Tricky Triangle. What a day and what a pit stop it was from him to close this one out.
Yeah, and what a drive it has been. I actually said aloud about halfway through the race that he wasn't looking that good, but he was doing the classic Phil Kraus thing. Just keep things calm, make sure nobody even realises I'm here for the first part of the race. And then at the end, I'll come forward and I will beat you all. That's exactly what he's done all over again.
We talked about his situation in the middle of a move, racing from a hotel room. You saw the consequences of that just a moment ago. Technical issues have not held him back. It's been 9 years, 9 different winners at Pocono. But here in the Lionheart IndyCar Series, history is made to be broken. 500 miles later, we have our first repeat winner, and it's 3 wins in 4 in 2022 as Phil Kraus wins the ButtKicker Pocono 500 presented by Next Level Racing. Can anyone stop the charge of the Wisconsin native? Even Adam Blocker can do little but watch as Kraus burns it down in HyperX victory lane again.
Yeah, fully deserving once more. 2.5 seconds the margin at the end. Slightly closer than it was last year, but not that much closer. He still had his rivals at arm's length once more, leading lap after lap after lap, eventually coming out victorious. And yeah, it doesn't look like anybody can stop him at the moment.
Incredible job so far, but from here it doesn't get easier. A week and a half from now we go to Silverstone, and from there the championship gets even more exciting. But when the chips were on the table, when double points were at play, Phil Kraus has made no mistake. Perfect here today for private label Team Hype 1 and 2. Joshua Chin finishes the race as well, albeit down in 28th. They'll line themselves up for the team photo and celebrate potentially with a Polish victory lap here. Fantastic day in a race that flew on by. Are we getting any victory donuts? I don't think so. They weren't that close on fuel, but apparently Phil Kraus minding that engine for what it's worth. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at our SimRace 24/7 race results. Phil Kraus, second in a row here at Pocono, 3 of 4 in 2022, emerges on top in front of Jason Brophy for the private label Team Hype. It's a power slide trio behind, with Adam Blocker taking the final step on the podium, Alexander Van der Sant and Robert Malechka through the top 5. Barrett Rolfe, what a day from him, again qualifying just not going his way, but your biggest mover plus 29 positions to get up into 6th spot. Caleb Bensi, Mike Rasmas, and Mitchell Riggs through the top 9. Riggs also up 29 to match his Ascari Autosport teammate. Andrew Marquez completes the top 10. Tony Shaw, AJ Musselman, Chris Fowler in a group just behind them, with Matthias Kraus having his best career finish in 14th after running in the top 10 for stages of today's race. Joe Branch in 15th with Chris Lanini, 16th Adam Fraser, Matt Taylor, the final cars on the lead lap. It was a pit road penalty for Connor Harrington that took him out of contention. He finishes as the first car 1 lap down in 19th, Stefan Larkamp just behind in 20th. Alex Gouillon 21st with Paul Jenkins, Andrew Kinsella, Bradley Sexton, the other cars 1 lap down, with Michael O'Brien, Mike Rigney, and Ryan Otis 2 laps adrift. Joshua Chin all by himself 3 laps down from your leader, while Matt Houston, the final of our finishers, in 29th position. Brian Beard through the top 30 with Brian Carey, Kite Bommersback, Adriano Pinheiro, Dustin Wardlow, Lionel Kalisto, Alexis Newsom, Tyler Graff, and Ron Hacker not making it to the end. Remember, every position counts in this double points race. That's why you saw the likes of Houston got it out there, even after early race trouble for him. And that leads us then into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. And let's dive straight into HyperX Victory Lane, where we find a man that didn't celebrate with some burnouts, but instead celebrates with the sweet joy of another victory in 2022. Phil, before we dive too much into the race itself, let's talk about that final pit stop. How scared were you entering pit lane locked up like that?
I'd say it was a calculated risk, although it really wasn't. Yeah, I was scared, but it was a risk I had to take because I wanted to try and break the draft, because on the previous run, Jason was kind of getting sucked back to Alex, and I thought if I didn't push that entry all the way, I was going to get sucked into that, and it was going to be like 3-car battle till the end. But obviously, Alex pit a lap early, which I think made him drop back in the end, unless he had a mistake in turn 1. But yeah, I was full send on the pit entry there. Definitely a little scary.
Yeah, Alex was full send in turn 1 and might have hit the wall. We'll let you go back and review that later. Talk to us about your, let's call it, setup for today's race. racing from a hotel room, I hear.
Yeah, it's definitely a setup, but since it's in the middle of the move, I'm lucky enough to have my whole PC and my regular wheel and all that fun stuff. So it's not a massive difference. The main worry was the Wi-Fi, which held up pretty well. I heard you were you were trying to find out where I was earlier, but yeah, they held up great. I was honestly shocked because I thought I was gonna have to run off of a phone hotspot, but I found out when I got here that was limited on speed, and I only had like 0.4 megabits download, so I couldn't even join a session on the phone. So I got really lucky that the Wi-Fi was that good.
I definitely wasn't trying to disrupt your race today, we'll put it that way. And now looking forward, I mean, 3 wins so far of 4. It doesn't get much better than that, but we go to Silverstone in a week and a half's time. Back to the road courses. The first time that you'll deal with a proper road course with one of these fixed setups. What are you thinking about heading there, where, of course, fireworks flew the last time in 2021?
I think fireworks flying last season is a bit of an understatement. There was definitely some things flying. I don't know if it was fireworks though, but yeah, definitely looking forward to it. I gotta say, first off, I've been extremely lucky at the start of the season. Like, it's been amazing to win 3 out of these first 4 races. Like, that is insane. But I've just really had the luck roll on my side so far. But I'm really looking forward to Silverstone. It's not my favorite track, but it's a road course, and I just love road courses in the R18. So looking forward to it just off of that fact alone, and we'll have to see how it goes for sure. And hopefully the fireworks won't be as bad as they were last season.
Me too, because if that's the case, I'm going to lose my voice again. To quote Gary Player, the more I practice, the luckier I get. You make your own luck, and Phil, you've had a blockbuster start to 2022. Let's hope it carries on from here. We'll see you then at Silverstone in a week and a half's time.
Yep, cheers.
Winner again is Phil Kraus. Leads us then to the second step of the podium, where Jason Brophy is delighted to be joining us, not just because his ears aren't being blasted by the music, but because pole and second. Jason, great day for you, great day for the team. Might have been better if Connor hadn't sped on pit lane.
Yeah, it would have been. I mean, all told, it's racing. Things happen. I'm just glad I didn't speed on pit lane.
Or do more.
So I'm real happy. I think it's my first pole, if I'm not mistaken. So had a really good Q lap, and then just managed to keep myself toward the front. I had some struggles in the practice race. I was a little concerned. Really struggled through 3, but I want to thank Rob. It's a good community. And anyway, he kind of gave a pointer, and it really helped me in the race. Granted, I still made some mistakes in there, but able to hold the track position, play the fuel strategy right. I think we broke at the right time, managed to get ourselves a little separation and kind of pull away. Been nice to be a 1-2-3. Really been nice to be a 1-2-3-4, but I think Chin killed somebody, so I feel bad there. But good day for the private label Team Hype Ethica car all around. So.
Josh got involved not just in 1, but 2 incidents, I regret to inform you. Talk to us now about what's ahead of you. Silverstone in a week and a half's time. We're just talking with Phil about the fireworks that we saw last year. But we know you're not the best on road courses, but you've been getting better. And we saw that at Long Beach as well, just biding your time and trying to stay out of the trouble.
I wouldn't say Long Beach was one of my better races. That was literally just I can't drive this safely enough, and I still wrecked on the last lap. But I enjoy Silverstone. There aren't walls so close to the track, so I'll feel a little more comfortable. It's funny, is I used to hate it, and then when we raced there last year, and with this tire model, it's so much fun on the road. The car is just a blast. So, I look forward to it. I really, for the most part, I know that I'm gonna have a hard time keeping up with Phil, Connor, Adam on the road courses, and Alex. So I got to maximize my ovals, and I feel like I did a good job of that today. I didn't do that so well at the Triple Crowns last year, so good start.
Of course, you work in the eNASCAR community as part of the setup builders. You must be delighted to have been done with the dirt and now getting ready for IndyCars at the Nordschleife next Monday. I know you're excited.
Hey, if you're there Monday night in the SOF broadcasting, we're good. I'll join you, even though I won't be in the SOF. So
I'll be broadcasting, that's for sure.
You can drive and talk. I know it. So Nordschleife, I'll be focused on my time toward Indy and Dover. We got Dover in about a week and a couple days, so I want to make sure we have a good car there. It's been a really strong run on the NASCAR side too for the Team Connie guys, and want to keep that up. So see what we can do with old Dover set and go fast.
Of course, we're coming up to the month of May, so I'm sure full attention from Team Talent, from the private label Team Hype goes there. Congrats, Brophy. I'm glad that for the second time this year we actually get to speak to you and you can hear yourself think rather than hear the music. So hopefully this rolls on and we'll see you more in 2022.
I agree. Thank you.
And to the final step of the podium, we're joined by your defending champion, Adam Blocker. Adam, great, fascinating race. 4 cautions over 500 miles. It looked like strategy was somewhat important, but I think more important was just being at the front at the right time, and the private label Team Hype were able to jump you into that final cycle of pit stops.
I mean, strategy was very important because there was a couple stints there where Paul Jenkins was leading, and we were just all saving behind him. And I made 2 big mistakes in that race. The first mistake I made was not passing Paul faster and just taking more of a hit on the fuel mileage. I was trying to stay behind him, and he was just going so slow, and Rob and Jason both got a run. They both passed me, and the second that happened, I mean, that just killed me. But then I came back, over the next, it took me about 30, 40 laps to get back, but I worked, Rob let me go because he was trying to hit a fuel number. I got past Alex, and I ran down Phil and Jason right before the pit cycle, and I had myself in a good spot, and then I screwed myself because I slid my box. So yeah, really just myself to blame. I would have been in a good spot, especially because I had to add less fuel than Phil and Jason, so I would have been right there with Phil, for the win. But at the end of the day, third is still a solid result. So.
Let's talk about what's up next time, Adam. Silverstone, where you had a great race with Joshua Chin until the final lap. I'm sure that you're looking to build off of that, especially given that I know you probably don't want to look at the points right now, but of course Phil has won 3 of the 4 races so far, and one of them being double points.
Yeah, I mean, going back to a road course is good. I won the first one this season, and I won Silverstone last year, so yeah, definitely looking forward to it. The tires are different than the tires we ran last year, so it'll be really interesting to see what the situation is there, as in what compounds will be good. And I think the reds will have a decent amount of fall off, so it'll be pretty interesting. And like we saw last year, the race will be really good. I think people able to make moves and fight, and a little bit of more strategic options this year will only make it better. So.
Thanks for joining us, Adam. Congratulations on the podium. We'll see you in a week and a half's time then from Silverstone.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody on the Powerslide group for working hard for this race. We didn't get the result we wanted, but we worked well as a team, and hopefully we'll take it to them the rest of the season. See you guys.
Wraps up our post-race coverage with the post-race interviews. Ewan, I love a 500-mile race, and we were talking about this at the very end, right? Not every race is going to be a slobber knocker of a brawl with lots of contact, lots of passing, but then you get these sort of cerebral races where you hear it from the driver. Strategy is important. Executing on pit lane is important as well. And we've got a driver on top of his game, just happens to be the one that you probably knew the most about coming into this one.
Well, that is helpful. But yeah, Phil Krause is absolutely unbelievable at the moment. To have won 3 out of the first 4 races in a field like this, in a series like this, is very, very impressive. And the way in which he's done it as well is just so impressive as well. He looks like he's not driving that well for about the first half of every race, especially in the last couple of races, and then he rises to the fore towards the end, and he absolutely detonates the field, and it is something beautiful to watch. He's done a fantastic job so far. Obviously, the likes of Adam Blocker will do their best to stop him in his championship charge here in 2022. And I can't wait to see that. But yeah, this has been a very enjoyable race for the first 500 mile of the season. The other 2 are going to be great, but in the meantime, we've got some great circuits in between as well. Silverstone is one of them, coming up in about a week and a half's time.
Yeah, that's back on our regular Wednesday night slots. These Triple Crowns, they're longer. We don't want people to be up until Ewan o'clock in the morning, because Ewan is in the UK, so the one time he's done Lionheart before, he was up to a god-awful time. But 10:05 p.m. Eastern, 7:05 p.m. Pacific, April the 27th, so about 11 days from now, we'll go back to the site of a contentious finish where Joshua Chin, Adam Blocker came to blows on the very final lap of the race. What does Silverstone have in store for us 12 months on from that? But with that said, unfortunately, it's time for us to bid you farewell after this first double point showdown in your 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. Before we say goodbye, as always, we'd like to thank those that make all of this possible, starting the title sponsor of the Lionheart IndyCar Series. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. ButtKicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com. Moser Racing is revolutionizing sim racing with the development of industry-leading hardware and software products like their R9 direct drive wheelbase and GS Racing steering wheel. Featuring zero-delay wireless technology and made from high-end materials, Moser Racing delivers the precision you need to reach victory lane. And Gomez Sim Industries, makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. And to learn more about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series or the 3 competitions the sanctioning body puts on, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com, and don't forget to follow across of social media to keep up to date with the latest comings and goings in the world of Lionheart. A week and a half, we'll be back from the home of British motorsports for round 5 in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. Plenty more action to come before that. In just 3 days' time, this coming Monday, the Speedway Series and the DW12s head to the Atlanta Motor Speedway for what should be an action-packed round 5 of that championship. For now, though, it is time to bid you farewell. Pocono has hosted it all in Lionheart over the last week and a half. 3 very worthy Triple Crown winners has emerged. How will the momentum carry on forward? Well, you'll have to find out here live on racespottv or ESTV as to how the rest of 2022 plays itself out. A blockbuster start, a blockbuster finish. Phil Kraus is on top and in control of the championship with 4 rounds complete in the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. For the team at RaceSpottv, for my co-commentator Ewan O'Leary, this is Arjuna Kankipati signing off from the Pocono Mountains. Can anyone stop Phil Kraus? So far, only Adam Blocker has been able to do so, and it was a close fight at Long Beach the last time they went wheel to wheel. Silverstone will have plenty more surprises April 27th. Don't miss the action, but we bid you farewell from the Pocono Mountains, where Phil Kraus is a winner, again, for the 3rd time in 2022.